All right. Guess we can just jump right in. Well, that green screen is doing weird things today. Oh well. All right, so here we go. We're off and running, doing the regular stuff we've been doing. Well, this time we're gonna get more into the details of the code of the HTML that we've been writing so far. I assume we have some people in here. I'm gonna have to change this up. Boy, I've got a lot of things you can change here. I'm not gonna edit this out. Oops. What am I doing here? Do 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 do. This is how you make your terminal not transparent anymore. I did this last time too. I know, I'm supposed to do all this before. Give me a break. All right, easier to read for what we're doing today anyway. From with his 73 Charger, and boy is she beautiful. And yes, I mean the car. Lol. Rolling up to his prom with his girlfriend in his 73 Charger. Nice. Darn, I keep missing. I'll turn the chat up. I'm pretty new to Twitch and Discord, so I thought I was missing something about how to get into live stream. Hi, Elsie. You can come here. It looks like it's the same Elsie in both places. When people spend hours trying to catch up on my time. Look, it's a long. I know that I'm doing these 4-hour things, and yeah, I know that not a lot of people are going to be able to keep up with that, and I don't intend everybody to be able to keep up with this. The chapters for Spark. So let me just say, rather than, last time we tried to do a boost like this at the beginning of the year, I tried to do it and then I had to give it up because we were trying to keep up with everybody. We were trying to have people keep up while I went through it. And I realized, that there was no way I was going to possibly be able to go at a pace that everybody could keep up. So I changed. I started making individual videos that people could read on their own. And then, so this new round of boosts is yet another attempt, a different strategy. This strategy is for me to do as much as possible during the 4 hours that I have on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then collect all that up into a playlist that you guys can then go through and hopefully get something out of. Mention that I don't know about. Well, great. That's what it's meant to be. So again, the reason I call these things boosts is I'm not going to cover everything in detail, starting with the book, right? I'm just using the book as a guide and catching the things that I think are out of date and then maybe mentioning things that you haven't heard of. And last night we had quite a few fun little things on the side to go look down. If these videos have served to motivate you to look up stuff on your own and try to figure stuff out, then they've been successful, because that's really what it's about. It's not about trying to work it's finding your own pace and finding your own interest in things and all of that kind of stuff. I have to say, when I'm doing homework from the Autodidactic Habits Part 1, I found, thanks for the documentaries. They're pretty good, aren't they? What's this about a book? Okay, yeah. If you guys have just come in for the first time, the book is Learning Web Design, so it's probably a good time for me to mention that. The book is called Learning Web Design, and it is designed. It's from Jen Robbins, and it's pretty much a standard textbook still to this day, even though it's somewhat dated. The book's been out since the 90s, but it's now at 6th edition, 5th edition, 6th edition. And again, it's a copyrighted book, so I suggest that you buy one, just like I would if I were teaching in college. And if you can't buy one, you may be able to find one at your local library, or sometimes your company will have access to a digital copy for free that you can look through. But it is copyrighted material. This is another reason I don't read from the book specifically, and I just refer to the book as we're going along, because I believe that's within the bounds of copyright. The copies that I have, of course, I've paid for several of them, and and encouraged hundreds of people to buy the book. So I believe this is all within fair use. But just know that the book again is Learning Web Design from Jennifer Robbins. All right, so let's jump right in. Just a reminder of the format here in case this is your first time. So the format is I'm gonna turn chat on every once in a while, then I'm gonna turn it off and read the book and talk, and then I'm going to go back to the chat. So if you have something to say, you're welcome to say it and kind of bounce it off the rest of the people in the community, either on YouTube or otherwise. If you are a back row, person who wants to make silly, fun remarks, that's fine too. But just know that the priority is for those who are just starting out here. So please don't, rob them of an opportunity to chat. At some point, we might have to put limits on the chat because, it could potentially get more people chatting at the same time. All right. So I'm going to switch over to the book now. So we are on chapter 5 within part 2. Let me just go show you where we are. So we're in chapter 5 and this is chapter of part 2. So it goes, I guess the chapters, continue to progress. We have quite a bit to cover. I mean, it's going to take us a while. We've only got, we're moving pretty slowly, but I feel good about it because we're covering things that need to be covered. So marking up text in this chapter, what are we going to do in this chapter? Choose the best element for your content, paragraphs and headings, 3 types of lists, organize the content into sections, text level, inline elements, and generic elements like div and span. So we're going to be going through more of the HTML elements. Remember, an element like body is the thing. We're going to be putting these into our page. I still have my Linus Torvalds page that I'll be working on, and you should have your page up and ready and working through that. If you don't know what editor to use, go back and watch the Tools of Technology video about editors. And all right, so it says once your content is ready to go and you've proofread it, that's interesting. So she's really speaking like a designer, right? God knows I don't proofread all my content before it goes up. Probably a good idea. And you got the doc type. Oh, that's an error right there. You see that? And you mark up the structure with doc type HTML title. This is well, I wish they would have put. What's wrong with this, guys? From last night, what is wrong with that? Anybody? What's wrong with it? What's it missing? It's missing the HTML right here, right? Doc type space HTML. Yeah. Yep, there we go. So we got the meta character set and all that. Okay, so as we begin our tour of elements, so we've already talked about a lot of elements last night or last time we met. I want to read how important it is to choose elements semantically, and I must have repeated that like a dozen times yesterday. Semantically means adding elements for meaning, not for appearance. And we had fun with the marquee and the center elements, which were removed from HTML when style sheets were added. 2 other ones that are kind of controversial and interesting is bold B and italics I, which were removed when style sheets came out. And then when HTML5 came back, they were added back in. But they were added back in as semantic elements, not as styles, which is something I'll let you read about. Really interesting little rabbit hole there if you want to go down why people use B and I now, and some people will yell at them and say, you can't use those. Those are in HTML5. I'm like, oh yeah? You want to go read it in the spec right here? I'll show it to you right here. Because they are legitimately HTML5 elements these days. They're very legit. And they've got specific meaning. All right. So semantic allows you to use assistive technologies and stuff like that. And we'll talk specifically about the differences between like a semantic element like main or section and a non-semantic element like div and span. That's going to be a big part of this chapter. So paragraphs. She mentions here teaching according to the HTML5 standard as listed here. I've already showed you a better resource for that. To go look it up. That is, I believe that's not necessarily the best place to go look for that. The best, I think the most consumable way to go look for this is to go to WhatWG HTML. And there we go. I think it's interesting too because, oh my gosh, did you see that? Clicking on this link actually redirects you to WhatWG. Interesting. That's interesting. Did you see that? That means there must be some sort of collaboration between W3. Like somebody reported, there's a collaboration between what WG and W3C now, because to have them redirect to the other page is that's saying something. So that's where you go for the standard for HTML, and that link even takes you there, which I think is cool. Paragraphs. Paragraphs are the most rudimentary. We don't need to really go into it. You just opening and closing p tag around something. You can have multiple lines in there. You can have blank lines. Remember, blank lines will all turn into a single space. No naked text. You must assign an element to all the text in a document. In other words, all text must be enclosed in some sort of element. Text that is not contained within tags is called naked or anonymous text, and it will cause the document to be invalid. It'll be invalid, but it will still display. We saw that the other day. I was like just putting the word blah in stuff, and it worked. In fact, you can actually mess with HTML a little bit here if you want to. So this is that one page, right? You can actually write to the document.write blah, and that will override the document with the word blah. Pretty cool, huh? And I just reload that and I can get that back. I remember this is the page that I've been working on as we go from last time. So we have that. The important thing to talk about here, once again, is the difference between a block and a span or an inline. So, pardon me, a paragraph element is a block, right? So your page is divided up into blocks, and blocks are divided up into spans of inline things and C data. C data is the stuff that's just text inside here. And we're going to get into things like entities and emojis and all that later. So let's keep going down. Technically, it's okay to omit the closing p tag, but it's a bad idea. Headings. Okay, note the word heading. All right. So HTML has head. Remember that? Right? There's a head and a body, right? And then it has headings like these, H1 through 6. And then there's a header semantic block element as well. So they're three that are very different, and make sure you use the right word there. It's easy to get confused. We're going to go down through that. So here's an example of how to use those. We've already started doing that, but we'll keep doing them. Let's see. The markup of this example would create the following document outline. And so this outline is called the DOM. We already looked at that. So we're gonna keep going with that. So H1, H2, H3, you get the idea. We can just do H1 and H2. We don't have to do all of them. You will notice that they change in appearance. And as I said last time, don't use headings to change appearance. Use headings to change meaning and significance, because you can change the default user agent style sheet, as we talked about last time as well, to have it display H2, which is bigger than an H1 if you wanted to. So it just so happens that these appearances, bigger and smaller and all that, are built into the default style for the web browser, but that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. All right. So don't count on that. Use those for meaning and not style. The magic breaks, horizontal rule. This is the one that's been around for a long time. This is no longer called a horizontal rule in HTML5 as far as I remember. It's actually now called a semantic division or a separator. I think it's a context separator, but HR stands for horizontal rule, so that's you can remember. This is a one of these rare elements that has one tag, just one opening tag, and it will put a really ugly line between your code. But again, the line is not important. What's important is that you're saying, no, I have a semantic division between the stuff above and the stuff underneath it, maybe a chapter or something like that. So you want to think of it as that. You don't want to think of it as the line. If you might, there's other ways to put a line there, right? But you want to think of it as, no, I wanted to have sort of a break between these two, this content. And that's super important. You can always change what it looks like, but there's what one looks like. Lists, okay, lists are pretty easy. You have unordered and ordered lists. The reason they call them ordered and unordered instead of numbered is because sometimes the numbers are like A, or you can change the numbers to be, Roman numerals. You can do all kinds of different things that may not have anything to do with numbers, and so they call them ordered and unordered. An unordered list can have any different kind of bullet in front of it, and you can set what kind of bullet that is. Um, but they're more commonly known bulleted lists and numbered lists, but unordered are bulleted and numbered are ordered. Description lists. I've never seen a description list used professionally in my life. If somebody knows of an example of somebody using a description list, please let me know. But I've never seen one in the wild ever. So I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for one. Here's how to do unordered lists. So when you do a list, you put a UL element around the whole thing, and then each item gets an LI element around it. Not too hard to do there. We're going kind of fast there. So we're about ready, and we'll go in and add all this stuff, examples of all this stuff to our stuff. And then what is this? Oh, unordered. Yeah. You can make it look differently. That's another thing to consider, is that the list doesn't have to be up and down. It can be left to right. You can change that with the style, how it appears. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a second here. I think we're going pretty fast through this, so I can just jump right in and start to show you the differences here. Nested lists. This is a thing you can do. You can have a list of a list. Just know that you can do that. Every time I look at these, this is another thing too, is you can set the starting number. If you want the number list, this is important, to start at a number other than 1, you can set the starting number, and that's a standard attribute, and it will start from there and keep going. Description list, the name, a name such as a term or a label, a value such as a description. Again, I don't ever use them. I guess we could add one. Description list, we have the description term, and then the description data. That's interesting. Oh, data definition. Interesting. I've never used them, but I guess if you were going to make like a lexicograph or a lexicon of something, I guess that would be the way to use them. In fact, I might have to consider using these in my upcoming thing that I'm making. I'm making kind of an index page that points to a bunch of definitions and stuff. So that might be good for a description list. Changing bullets and numbers, we talked about changing that with the list style, and we'll go through all of that. So this is interesting. This is kind of a definition more than a description. I don't know. I guess semantically that is something that's useful. So I might give that consideration, although I've very rarely ever seen those. How much more do we got for this? So we have content elements, block codes, figure, fig caption, long quotations. It looks like they're going to keep going. So I'm going to take a break here, and we'll come back. We'll do all the way through the lists, and then we'll add those to our document as an example. I'm going to go take some comments. Let's see here. Okay, so it's missing HTML. Yeah. What do you go for the specs for JavaScript? JavaScript these days, I believe, is ECMA. So let's see if we can go find that. That's a good question. Oh, before we leave this, it reminds me. Let's talk about JavaScript for a bit. Okay, so remember to come back to that. All right, so we're going to be editing this page we've been working on, right? And you know what? Let me go ahead and add a new one here. Oh boy. Oh boy. Let's see. cd into, let's see, where are we going? I have to remember where we did our stuff. Learn web design. All right. So what I wanted to show you before we continue is how to put a script in your web page. We spent a lot of time with scripts last time, kind of, going down into the deep, canyon. And we are going to talk about JavaScript later, but I like to talk about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript at the same time in our initial overview. And yesterday I forgot to put one last thing in here. So if I wanted to run JavaScript in my page, I can put a script tag, script element, and I can put it in like this, and you'll see this a lot. And we can put a little bit of JavaScript in here. I'm not going to learn JavaScript right now, but hello console. And we can go and see that code run when we reload the page. So you see how it says hello console here, right? But in addition to that, I could say hello console from script element. Okay. But if I want to put a more, involved JavaScript into a separate file, I can do this instead. I can do script src equals main.js or whatever. It doesn't matter what the name is. And then you have an empty tag. Okay. And that's a little bit hard to remember. It would be great if you could put a link like with CSS, but I'm not aware that that's possible yet. So now that if I run that right now, it's going to give an error. Why? Because there's no main.js. There's no main that doesn't exist. See? But if I close this and I put something in the main.js file, just like what CSS was in a separate file, right? I can now put in here console, .log hello from main.js. And now when we reload our page, we'll get hello from the script element and hello from main.js. So it even tells you here. In fact, if you want to get a quick look at where it's coming from, you can click on there and it'll show you all your resources. These are the cached resources that you've used. So once again, there's lots and lots of tools inside of DevTools. We're not going to cover nearly all of them, but just know that they're there and you can go to them and you can use them anytime. All right, so I wanted to show you how to include JavaScript. Okay, and we're going to be doing a lot of great stuff with JavaScript. Within the next two series, we're going to use we're going to talk about the JavaScript Way, which is a free book you can get anytime. All right, so there was a question about, where is the main specification for JavaScript? And it's maintained by the ECMA. So we can go there. It says here, ECMA specification. So JavaScript versions, we go there, developer.mozilla, all the regular, hits, W3 Schools, Wikipedia, Stack Exchange, developer.mozilla, and I'm trying to find the official Core second edition. That's interesting. So on the Wikipedia page, it says this is the latest accepted revision. Not to be confused with Java. Java is to JavaScript as car is to carpet. Paradigm event driven. I'm trying to find it. There it is. Stable release. Software release cycle. Site note. Preview release. I'm trying to find out if there's a link to it. So V8 is the main one. Let's go see where the influenced by ActionScript. History, ECMAScript. Okay, so that's the official name of JavaScript these days, but no one says that. I'm actually trying to find the official specification. I haven't pulled it up in a long time. Is a programming language specification, site note, blah. I bet that's it. Let's go check. There we go. ECMAScript 2020. They do it by year now, by the way. So yeah. Wait, why are you not? Okay, let's go. There we go. So that is definitely the definition. Wow, that's all. Wow, what is this? Let's go open this with our web browser, shall we? With a graphic web browser. Oh, that's it. Whoa, that is my fan just came on. That's how big that document is. Well, there you go. It's even got a search bar. I haven't seen this version. Wow, it's like so long. All right, so there you go. It says ECMA 262. I wonder if there's like one without that. Let's go see. TC39.es specifying JavaScript. TC39, ECMA's International is a group of JavaScript developers. TC39. I wonder if the TC39 is a Star Wars reference. I didn't know. But you're learning this with me too. I didn't know any of this stuff because I don't look it up. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I do not look that stuff up because I just use what I know to be EC5 and what's documented in the book. Although in this particular case, JavaScript is a much longer specification than the HTML specification. I don't know if I'd have the patience to read through it all, but there you go. Yeah. Nice. So yeah, that's good. I'm glad you asked the question. See, we all learned something today. All right. So that's what's going on. Okay, so we're going to add all of the stuff up to this point. I'm going to back up a little bit and remind myself as I go so I can show you guys how to add everything. It's always going to stick better if you're adding your own stuff, so you might want to go ahead and add your own stuff real quick. We should probably scream right through this. This is the kind of stuff that you just have to keep making web pages and it will become second nature to you to put it in. So, you know, I should probably leave this one open. All right, so the first thing we need to put in here is we have all that. Paragraphs, we already have that, right? There's a paragraph. It's just more fun if you do it, so make your own. Headings, we already have headings 1 and 2. I'm not going to get crazy and do more than that. We have those. We have that. Thematic breaks. Okay, let's put a horizontal rule. I mean, it doesn't really make sense here. I guess, why don't we put it down here? Let's say we want a HR here. We say, and then we can have another H1, which is not uncommon. It's generally good to have, I mean, for SEO purposes, you don't want to have usually more than one H1 in your page, but in this case, so we're making maybe 2 documents. Let's say, so this, pretend like we have 2 documents, Introduction to Linux, and then we could say, I don't know, something completely different, Windows, H1, and then do a paragraph. Windows is a thing that people use. Windows, I could put Windows are things that people use. I don't know. All right, so gonna reload. Wait, where's my? Here we go. Reload. So as you can see, we have Windows is down here now, right? So we have that HR. See that? But you can change the style of it. All right, so let's go back. I mean, easy stuff, right? HR lists. All right, so let's do all 3 types of lists. Again, it's gonna be good for me with description lists because I don't use them very much. There's a lot of things in this book actually that I don't use constantly. It's gonna be good for me to go through as well. So let's do a list. So Windows. So we could say, I don't know. What should we say? here are some different Windows operating systems. I don't know. Pick a better topic. Windows operating systems over the years. How about we do Linux? I refuse to do that. I'm going to teach you. Okay, let's do that. So let's add one here, okay? So let's do this. So we'll just do this. We'll say blah. We can make blah a tag. Blah, blah, blah. No offense, Windows users. But I want to write about Linux. So there. So unordered list. Say, so let's put it, it's going to put another H2 here. And we're going to say distros. How about that? Yeah. And so we have an unordered list. And another unordered list. And we need a list item. And an end list item so we don't forget. So what's the favorite distro? I have Pop OS. Pop OS. And then what? Arch. I use Arch, by the way. And Ubuntu. How about Mint? Mint and Ubuntu are kind of the same, right? Not now. They have there's a Debian version now. We should probably put Debian. We could have a sublist. Ooh, should we do that? Let's do that. Let's say Debian. Yeah. And we can do a list of a list. You want to get crazy? Let's do that, shall we? So we could have, so this first item, holy cow, this is going to get crazy. This is why I use Markdown for this. So this first one we're going to have be, let's see, we could have a list of a list. So we would have a list item, and a list item could be another list. Oh no, I'm going to break myself. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it. All right. And then we'll put UL here. Actually, let's, I don't know. It doesn't matter because white space doesn't matter, remember? UL. And then I don't know if we could put, I mean, that might be a good use for definition list. All right, so let's say this. Let's say, so this list item contains Ubuntu, no, Debian. And then we can say, oh, we can have a list after that. So we could actually have this be like a paragraph. I think you could, yeah. Paragraph, and then we have a list under Debian. So we have a list. I'm just getting crazy. Actually, let's put these on the same line. So Debian, we have Debian. What else do we have? We have Ubuntu. And frankly, wait, we want to get really crazy. Should we do it? Pop OS is a subclass of Ubuntu. Yeah, I know. They just blow your mind. So yeah, actually, if we do that, get rid of this. I'm just having fun. And put one here. I mean, you guys get the idea, right? Whether this is correct or not, we don't know. We're going to find out in a bit. So an ordered list. And we're going to say, so in Ubuntu we have, we have an Ubuntu, and then we have a Pop OS. You have Mint, which is a flavor of Ubuntu, for most part. I mean, you have Lubuntu. I mean, obviously this is not gonna cut it because there's just too many inter-associations that's better displayed in a graphic or something. But you kind of get the point. Let me see if I did this right. UL. P, let's do Ubuntu. I guess we could get rid of this, and that's kind of weird. Let's do that. Debian. So we have a Debian is an Ubuntu, but it says Ubuntu. We'll get rid of that one, so pop them in. All right. What do you think that looks like? Let's get rid of these for now. We can do another list called preferences later, right? Let's just see if that works. And so we're gonna go back here. Oops, not that one. There we go. Refresh. Ooh, look what we got. So we've got distros. We have Debian, and we have Ubuntu under that, and then Pop! OS under that. You see what I mean? I mean, I did put a break there and a paragraph, so that's why it's doing that. I could probably get away with that without the. We could probably drop the paragraph tag. Let's try that. And make that just part of the list item. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm almost positive we can do that. Let's try that instead. See what that looks like. Maybe that looks better. Yep, there we go. So you have Debian, you have Ubuntu under there, and you have Pop! OS under that. See how it like does the little things? All right, and then any questions about that list before we go on to the number list? And I need to do something here. Tmux default to change Windows. I don't know what the default is. Let's go to Tmux. Reset and bind. I've been meaning to look this up. I'm trying to change my panes. This is the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, let's do that. Like question mark. All right. Control A. I need to change my windows. Give me a sec. Oh, select window 1. CV0. Rename the current window. Move the current window. So I'm just looking some Tmux stuff up. This is advanced stuff, so don't worry. I don't want to split. I want to toggle. Boop, boop, boop. Move to the previous active pane. Create a new window, display the window out, select the next window, N, Control B, P, okay. Okay, gotcha. So we'll do this, there we go. So there you are. Any questions? Let's see. Debian, lol. Did I spell it wrong? Did I? Debian. Did I spell it wrong? No? I don't know if you're supposed to put paragraphs. I don't think you're supposed to put paragraphs in lists either. Let's go see if that's a valid thing. Right. Well, what I'm wondering is if it's like valid, right? Is it valid to put stuff in? I'm like asking myself too, because I love Debian like you love Go. Yeah, Debian's good. I like Debian too. All right. So, is it valid? It is. All right. Thanks, guys. So, so what? So we have. Did I close all my stuff? That one's closed. This one's closed. This is where something like VS Code would come in nice, because another thing you can do too is you can. It's not set to do it right now, so I can't do the this operator. That only just shows you the other thing. If you want to actually get your tags to match, there's an HTML thing that will show you your matching tags. My Vim plugins for HTML is not very good. In fact, is there anybody out there who is a Vim web developer? They're rare, but if there's anybody out there who does Vim web development, the last URL isn't closed? Are you sure? Are you sure? Oh my God. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed. All right. What else we got? So let's do an ordered list. All right. And let's do an ordered list. So an ordered list is OL, and these are all going to be numbers. And what we're going to do, let's say, you're going to hate me. Best, let's say preferred Linux, preferred for beginners. I'm writing Markdown. Because I've done it so much. Let's do an H3, shall we? Preferred for beginners. Obviously, I didn't put all my stuff there. So, sue me. You know what I'm writing right here, right? What's the second biggest best for beginners? I'm not even looking at the chat yet. Mint. Cinnamon is my preference. Arch. Should we make Arch number 3? I mean, mint cinnamon is like... All right, so I'm sure you guys have opinions there. What are your opinions? Let me see. OpenBSD is not Linux. This is about Linux. You're going to make me put a little note here, right? I know, we'll have a whole section on, you know what? Screw Windows. We'll have Unix like operating systems. Much more fun to write about that, right? Blah, blah, blah. And we'll do a whole section on that. How about that? We'll do a definition on that. We'll do a definition list for that. All right. So does that make everybody happy? OS 360. Susie's got to be in there. Yeah. No forked funniness. We have, how long have we been learning for, and what are we working on? How's it going, Nerdson? We're doing learning web design. You can go to my YouTube playlist on this, and you can go back and watch the other videos that lead up to us. That we're going through a book that learning web design by Jennifer Robbins, and we're just working through the book as we go. What do I do here? All right, so this should show numbers now. Is my point. So if I do this, so we get this other heading here, Unix like operating systems, and then we have Pop OS, Mint Cinnamon. See how I put numbers there? And if we want to get crazy, I don't know why you would, but you could do, I've never done this. You could do start equals 3. And then what do you get? 3, 4, 5. See that? You can also set the type and everything, but that's a style thing. So we're not going to do that right now. You can change, what kind of thing. In fact, actually, let's play with that. So let's do some element stuff. So remember all this fun stuff over here with this? So I can actually whoops, let's really reload. Reload, there you go. Okay, so inspect element, that'll jump me right to it. You can go on that and say, I want to change this display list item, user agent style sheet. So that means this is default. Ordered list style type, decimal, user agent style sheet default. Okay. So by default, it's decimal, but you can change it, right? So if you want to change it, you can just do this, and you can say, I want to change OL to what? And you can overwrite the other one. And we could say list style type colon. Look at all the possibilities. Ooh, let's use kanji. What? That's so much cooler. Isn't that cooler? I have no idea what it is, but it looks cooler. All right, let's go change this. Now, by the way, how would I change the styles? You guys remember? We're not supposed to learn CSS yet, but not too hard. So I can just copy this out here, because now that I know how to use it, I can copy it and go back. And we already have a style sheet. Remember we added a style sheet, right? So how do I do it? I'm going to just paste it in here, but I need to give it a target. And what was the target? The target, or the selector, is all of the OL things. Anything that's an OL thing now is a kanji character. So now that's permanently there. So if I reload, I won't lose anything. So let's play around with the other thing. I know I'm kind of getting you into styles ahead of time. So inspect like these little disky things here. We can change those too. So unordered list, it says by default to use a disk, right? Well, let's fix that. Let's change that. Let's change it to, we want all of our UL stuff to have a list style type. You can even use your own images, by the way. You can like use your own emojis or something. Oh, see, this is what's really funny. You could actually, wait, was that going to also be numbers? It is. You see that? So it's 111. So this is one of the kind of casualties from all this is you can actually turn your unordered list into an ordered list just by changing the style type, which is kind of weird. We could go to circle. Let's try circle. Now they're all circles. So if it's an unordered list, it has circles. So they're all circles. There's not like some sub thing. Let's see. What else we got? What else we use here? We got Vengati. What is that? What? All right. So some sort of Sanskrit derivative. You can have inherit, which means that, oh, look, this is a good one. Sometimes you just want things to be indented. Just put none. Right? You can just have them all indent nicely. But the meaning is still the same. The semantics are still intact, even though it's affected the style. So I think that's probably enough for lists. Let's try a definition list, unless you guys have some other ideas. But using the style stage to change the UL to an OL is not accessible. No, you can basically make it look like it's a UL, an unordered list, even though it has numbers, which I don't know why you would do that, but I guess you can. And you can use this to indent guide HTML, Vim indent guides. Nah, that's okay. Thank you though. So yeah, we're going to go back to, so we got our little style sheet here. Now let's use this last kind of list. I swear I'm going to flail on this because I never ever use this. Can I ask the chat, how many of you have actually used description lists before? Is there anybody who's actually used it in production? Maybe we have a couple old timers here who've been around for a while using stuff. I don't mean to make you sound old just because you said you used it. So apparently it's DL, and I'm going to close it out as a DL. I kind of like it. It's like, I would consider it more of a definition list. And then what do we got? So let's go back and read about it. When in doubt, read. Description list, they call them, but I'm wondering if it's a definition list. I'll list elements and list them. You know what? I want to look at the what WG on this. I do. I want to see how new it is. So one page version. That's going to take forever. Watch my fan come on. Yeah, my fan is on. It's like, no, I can't display all of that. Please don't make me. My computer is still thinking. There we go. So let's go look for description list. Description list. All right. DL. Wait. The DL element. Categories, flow control, context, expected, content model. DL, 0 or more groups consisting of one or more DT elements and DD elements. If the element is the DL element, okay. Well, I want to see the actual, well, let's see this. DD element. Here we go. DL, DT, DD. In this example, we show a list of frequently asked questions. What do we want? Our data. Wow. Does not indicate that its contents are a term or being defined. The DT element itself, when used in a DL element, does not indicate that its contents are a term being defined, but this can be indicated using the DFN element. I have never once used the DFN element. Let's see. But there must be no DFN element. These are elements that are very weird that I've never used. Oh, there we go. Definition, abbreviation, I've seen it ABBR before. I have never used that. I probably should. I mean, I'm going to start learning about some of these. Um, I'm gonna make a guess that most web developers don't know about that, just to make myself feel better. But maybe somebody's used them a lot. This is Bash. Yep. Style is only that style sheet, not a functional management tool. Yes. I don't think so. As long as it can be navigated by the screen reader, is still accessible. I would think. Yes. Boop, 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 boop. Style sheet should change UL. Yeah. Yes. By using a style sheet to change UL to UL is not accessible. Right. So let me just say this. I don't. I guess I could see a use for doing that. Um, one of the reasons that I'm not as familiar with those extra elements is because they're not a part of Markdown, and I can communicate anything that I ever need to communicate using Markdown. And so those things are. Pandoc has the idea of a definition list, of a description list, but they are not a part of Common Mark, and most communication does that. So I'm trying to think of a practical application where you would find definition lists and abbreviations, all this stuff. And it might be if you were using some sort of like graphic editor and you just wanted to add, that kind of thing, you could add it. But now you know it exists. He was trying to read ScreenSS with a screen reader. I'm not. Yeah. Yeah, but and CSS does not render on a screen reader. W3, what is it called? I3M or whatever. W3M tries to do it, but it does a horrible job, I think. Besides, if I'm using a screen reader, a text reader, I don't care about styles. I just care about indentation and semantics and stuff like that. So, in fact, I'm going to skip description lists because I don't think you need to know them. That's my prerogative. I guess I can say that. I don't want to waste my time on it because I don't think they're useful. I know. I just said something that's against what the author thinks, but I guess that's fine. And I also don't think marquee is useful, but marquee is, deprecated. So just know that they are there, and we can go through this some more. However, unordered and ordered lists are everywhere. They're everywhere. They're in Markdown. They're in Reddit. They're in Discord. So just know that. I did want to show you, though, that you can change the appearance of a list. And I wanted to take a little time demonstrating that too. I think this is really important, particularly in modern web development. And I want to first show you an example of what I mean by that. So let's say that I have... so first of all, let me show you the source code of a page that I have, been working on, and this is well, not that one. Let's find a better one. Let's look at the index.html here. Okay, so this is the rwx.gg site. And it's got tons of problems that I need to fix. Let me just tell you right now, it's not a perfect example of a wonderful site. I threw this together really fast. Continues to plague me as a problem because I need to get better template generation from what I'm doing. And you can, when we're not in class like this sort of, session, then you can watch what I do. But what I wanted to show you was that my navigation is an unordered list. All right. So this is an LI. Now, why did I do that? Right? I could have just put a bunch of boxes, or I could have put something. The reason I did that is because when you go visit the site using a text-based browser or with a web browser with JavaScript turned off, it looks fine. And you see these links on the top. And so for a site, they're a very wise designer. I can't remember who. It was probably Lynn. Gave me one of my first jobs, said you should never make a site that looks bad with JavaScript turned off and with styles turned off. So if you turn off the style sheet, if you fake it so the style sheet doesn't go on, and you turn off all JavaScript, you should still be able to read the page. And if you can't read the page, you're doing it wrong because you're depending on things that are not semantic. And this is one of those things. Like if I hit, I could have implemented these in a different way so that they would go across the top of the screen, and that would be fine. But I like that it's an ordered list. But here's the reason I'm showing you this, because now when I open this page using a web browser, oops, wrong one, sorry. I pushed period instead of colon. So if I now open this with a graphic web browser, you can see here they are. It doesn't look like an ordered list, does it? But it is. This is an ordered list. This is an ordered list that's had its type, its block type and other things about it changed so that it it appears this way, and it's responsive. So I mean, I got to really zoom in on it to make it do anything. But you see my point, right? It's actually busted right now. That alignment's really off. I'm sorry. You guys get to see all my failures. But this is one of the sites I've been working on. I'm more proud of like my other sites because I fixed them. rwxlive.gg. Oopsie, that's not it. There's no such thing as that. rwxrob.live. And this even needs optimization that I've been working on too. So right, but this is a bit cleaner. A little bit, this looks a bit cleaner, right? I think this still has a problem on some mobile browsers, which I still need to fully test. But I wanted to get something up fast, and so I threw something up really fast. My point is that right there is a link. That's an unordered list. Yeah. So that's all I'm trying to say is you can change the appearance, and that's what this point is making in the document, so that you get this idea here. So these are just different ways of showing the same list. Okay, doesn't have to be a bulleted list. You can reorder it and make it look however you want. I mean, not reorder it, but you can, you technically you can make even the order on the page different depending on how you want to control how it appears. But semantically, the one item will always be list item li will always be before the other ones. So there. Other questions? Any comments? In my time in the industry, I've never seen a deal. Me neither. Accessible. Yeah, UL and OL are used all the time. A comment for that. It depends. If you have a dynamic generation for any number of reasons, you can't really have hard-coded links unless you go into server-side rendered pages, which is a whole different beast. For any number, you can't have hard-coded links. I will have to talk about that a little bit more later. How's it going, one-liner? Onliner. I can code HTML5. But for cut design, but yeah. How's it going? HD Merc. All right, so let's go back to where we were. And I'm gonna go ahead and quit this one here for a bit. I guess we can bring you guys back. Have connection problem, or is it, I don't know. Lag? Are you guys having lag? If anybody has lag, let me know. You're referring to the comment that a page should be functional and good with both CSS and JS turned off. Sometimes it's just not doable. This gets back, I still maintain that I agree with that. Modern web development can still be done that way, in my opinion. If you've used progressive design, in other words, you've added functionality incrementally, then you can do it. If you have chosen to make an application out of your web page when it should probably be a web page, then no. If you're supposed to make it an application and it's never supposed to be a page, then yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I really, this gets back to a big point I've made in the earlier videos, where, the distinction between the document web, the application web, the broadcast web and the conversational web, but primarily the documentation and the app web. The distinction between those two, those lines, I believe, need to be more clear, because when you muddle the waters, then you get problems, right? You get blogs that can't be used without JavaScript. and that's where you get that kind of problem. All right, screenshotty photo, screenshotty. All right, so let's go back to what we got out here going on. What is? Oh, it's Periscope. It's our Periscope user. What is he doing? I'm gonna take a break real quick. Give me a second. I want to see what he's saying. Do 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 do. We are focused on. This is just web design right now. Yeah. Bum 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 bum. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh, I think I know what he's talking about. Let me see here. Welcome. Do 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 do. Whoa, Periscope's going away. Sorry. Do 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 do. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out here. Do 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 do. What? Oh my. Do 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 do. Do, do, do. Oh well. Hmm. Uh-huh, uh-huh. I don't know, man. That's weird. Sorry, guys. I have to take a break. I'm talking. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, that's so funny. Do, do, do. Hmm, hmm, hmm. 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 All right, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Sorry, took me so long. Okay. I think we got it. Everything's good. And all right, so where were we? We are on lists. So we got a list done. And somebody said in the chat that they've never seen in a professional career ever the use of data definition description lists. So I'm okay with not showing those. And we did this fancy stuff. We showed you how to change the appearance of these lists. So man, we're screaming through this. We're on page 77 already. So more content elements. So this is where things get really interesting and they really start to diverge from practical applications to stuff that you might want to use if you're a designer. As I've already given up, I use primarily Markdown and Pandoc Markdown specifically, which does make use of things like figure, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So let me just check the chat one more time before I go back. It's the same for CMS. We have a question here on Udemy. I think Udemy would be fine if you want to do it. I'm not particularly fond of Udemy. I deliberately opted out of Udemy, mostly because I didn't like their complete control over all your content, and even though I ended up deciding to just go with monetization on YouTube, and which is a fraction of the income you could get from even Udemy. I just feel like it's a better way for me to get stuff out there for the most people, and frankly, those people who want to support me will do so, and I'm be focused on writing books and stuff like that, right? And you don't have any control of the Udemy content, so I wasn't I wasn't really into that. But you can use it as open source, right? All right. So what else are we going to do tonight? I mean, this stuff that we're doing is pretty basic stuff. So I'm sorry if it seems kind of simple, but that's the content we're covering. So we covered paragraphs, headings, and lists, and there are a few more special text elements to add to your HTML, block, pre, figure, and block quote. And I like that we're going to cover these because these are the ones that are going to translate into Pandoc later. And so let's go ahead and proceed here. We are now going to start talking about grouping content in an HTML5 way using main, section, header, nav. We're going to talk about those. I don't know how many of these are going to actually cover. The one exception is the newer main element, which is not recognized by any. This is completely wrong. All right. So this is, once again, this book is really, really old. I imagine the reason that this book is not getting updated is because they have to really redo the whole book. Every single page and every paragraph has something that's out of date, even though the main content is so good. So right. No, that's all I'm going to say there. Let me prove it to you. So the claim here is that one exception is the newer main element. Well, let's see how long the main element has been around. Let's go and can I use, right? And so we're gonna let me full screen this. Actually, not that one. Let's this guy here. Let's full screen this one, and we'll go to can I use. So caniuse.com. And we'll search for main. Can I use main? And as you can see, usage relative. So we can use main. In fact, we've been able to use main dependably since July 28th, 2015. That's even an edge. IE does not support it, nor will it ever support it. Doesn't matter. IE is crap that nobody uses. And there's the proof. All right. If you have an organization or a government that's still using Internet Explorer, quit tomorrow and work for a different company. I'm not kidding. If they're that far behind, if they have that much technical debt, they are not only are they out of date, they're like insecure and dangerous. You don't want to be associated with that company anymore. Now, I mean that. I really mean that. If you work for a government agency or some bureaucratic organization that still has demands Internet Explorer, you need to leave as soon as possible, because the company's going to go down in flames in one way or another. All right, so the 1.5% IE users, yeah. Please, then I have PTSD from I know, and that's why I'm saying, if you work for a company, the other day, the reason I said that, I retired from a government agency that updated to IE 11 in 2016. Yeah, there are government agencies that are still doing it, and I'm just telling you, if you want a career, don't stay with any company that's doing IE. That company, any company that's doing IE in 2021, is a company you want to run screaming from as fast as you can, particularly if you're qualified and stuff. Yeah, just don't do their site. Just don't even bother. You have the choice. Just let them die on the vine and go away. In the past time on JavaScript, no, God, no. So, but as you saw, the point of this was, yeah, hackers are going to attack it and support IE until like a year ago. We have spent blood, sweat, and tears to get them to IE quit. No, it's I'm not even apologetic anymore. And you know what? You don't have to be either. Anybody who's that far behind has no concern for security of their corporation, because every single person who uses IE within that company is putting the company at direct risk, because you can be damn sure they're not updating everything else on their browser, which means that they're getting phished like crazy, which means that they're getting attacked. And if you know anything about front end cybersecurity attacks, you know that IE is a huge problem. It's like having Flash in your organization. Don't work for any company that has its entire model running on Flash. It's taking age. I don't care. I don't care how big the organization is. Get off of it before you go down in flames with them. Okay, this is called Can I Use? We talked about it on the first day. This is a really, really critical resource to tell you what you should be using and what is the most popular. The most popular browser in the world is Chrome for Android right now. And then we have Chrome for these other things. This is telling you what you can use and when and how long you've been able to use it. As you can see, you've only been able to use, well, that one's been around for a while, but yeah. So that's actually, I think before it was the Samsung browser, and then they put Chrome on Android by default, and now we see this. So some pretty valid data there. Let's see. He retired. Flash, Adobe, haha. Yeah. So anyway, so you can definitely use the main element. You've been able to use the main element for more than 10 years. So this is really, really out of date on that particular point. Some of the points are timeless that she makes, like, responsive design and support for everything and accessibility. So I'm still going to keep using this. Long quotations. So this is called a block quote. And this has a direct corollary in Markdown, which we'll go over in Pandoc, in the Pandoc series after this, for generating content and managing your knowledge. But as you can see, you can put a block quote around the whole thing, and that will give you sort of a unique, a unique font and a different style by default. But mostly it says, "Hey, here comes a block quote," and I'm gonna give you an example of what those look like. By once again going to a website that I know about that has them. Beware of any, if there's a swear word on here, look away. I'm sorry. So here is a block quote. Okay. This is a block quote that came from my notes on my notes page, robs.io. Again, full disclosure, it's me unfiltered, which includes lots of F-bombs and political ranting and everything. So if you go there, you do it on your own. But I'm showing you this because there's this block quote that I used, right? But I didn't use a block quote. I used Markdown. So if I inspect it, you'll see that, there we go. So we have this block quote right here. Zoom in on this so you can see it. I'm going to have to, and of course you can change the styles on the block quote. So there's the block quote, and I have a paragraph inside it. Of course, I didn't write any of that HTML. That was written for me by Markdown. But you know how to do it because this is what it does. It goes, the block quote goes in there. All right, so next item. There's an example of what a block quote would appear like too. Again, it's a semantic meaning. It's like this is something that the thing that's cool about that is that when you build a search engine or something, you can say, I want to search all the block quotes for this content, or I want to search all the titles for this content. So that's why we use these things, because it makes it that much easier to search them and to write your own search engines for them, which I've been doing today, actually. So yeah. But thank you anyways. What's that? The HTML document? You're talking about can I use, or you're talking about learning web design? Oh, block quote. Yeah. It's from, you're talking about links maybe. I don't know which one you're talking about. Or this document, this is learning web design. This isn't a browser. This is a PDF. Pre-formatted text. Okay, so pre-formatted text is very much in use today still. And you'll see this all the time in you can actually use pre-formatted text in Discord and things like that. This is how you get syntax highlighting. So anytime you see code online, you'll see pre-formatted text. It just means that don't do anything to the text in here, right? It says, okay, turn off all of the, the markdown, the markup tags and everything, and just put it as is until I get to the next pre-tag. So that's what's up with that. So we're going to go through that. So here we go. Here's an example. It's a bad example because it doesn't fit on the screen, but I guess it does. Yeah. See all the spacing, everything matches up, right? Often you'll see a pre-tag like that combined with a code tag. We haven't done emphasis yet, but we will. And that tells you that, hey, this is meant to look like code, or it actually is code. So pre-formatted. Then we have figure. Okay, so now figure is actually much more common than you would think. And we did IMG already, right? Remember IMG? So we did IMG, and that got us the image. But figure, when you put an image inside of a figure, it gives you more information about the image. So it's a nice semantic addition. And you get these by default in Pandoc Markdown when you provide, extra alt text and stuff like that. You get a figure with a caption and some other things for free, so you don't have to add them. But you can just add the figure element, and then you see how it goes around here, right? And then you would add, see here, the alt text. You always have to have that for the image anyway. But the figure can then go in here, and you can put figure caption, blah, blah, blah. There are tools that will itemize all of the figures in your code. And this is another thing that she's showing here. This is important. A figure does not have to be an image. So like if you were reading a textbook and say, see figure 2.1 on page blah, 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 right? Well, that's what this is about. So you can put figures in here. You can give them names. You can make, this is very uncommon to see in the wild, but you can do this. You can make, pre-formatted text a figure. A figure doesn't have to be an image. And so again, not common to do that. Usually if you're going to start writing figures in your markdown, and your markup, you're already using another tool at that point, but now you know what they are. Okay. Marking up a recipe. So here's a recipe that we're going to mark up, it looks like. And we could do this one, I guess. We kind of did our markup already with our items. So I don't think we need to do that because we already did the operating system stuff. Remember, we did like the lists and stuff. So organizing your page content. The new element names are based on a Google study that looked at the top 20 names that developers assigned to generic division elements. Interesting stat. I didn't know that. Organizing page content. So far, elements we've covered handle very specific tidbits of content, a paragraph, a heading, a figure, and so on. Prior to HTML5, there was no way to group these bits into larger bits than to wrap them into a generic div element. And this is now going to talk about div soup. This is something I want to hit really hard. So we're going to talk about the semantic elements and the problem with div soup and what that even means. And so I'm just going to kind of go over this, let you read it. Main, header, footer, aside, all of this. HTML5 support in Internet Explorer. We don't care. We're going to skip that. That's all out of date. You do not need this anymore. Just don't even, this whole thing needs to be ripped out. This is why I think this book is kind of on its last leg. And frankly, I'm planning on writing my own learning web design book for like basic web design, because I think some of this stuff is too much for most people. They don't need that. Main content. So this is where she's going to start describing the semantic elements, and this is super important. So before we get into the semantic element explanation, I want to let you guys have a chance to talk if you have any questions. So anything about that? Yes, Google rankings love it when you use semantic tags. They love that. Yep. The quote example to show block quote is user, our alphabet hasn't changed in eons. How is the original spelling? Eon, right. How's it going, key macro? For all hackers out there, try clicking Control-Shift-I or F12 in Discord. Let's see, but tell me the code of HTML5, go for all browsers, right? Yeah, of course it does. Well, obviously it's written in Electron. What I really want to know is how Riot Games managed to lock down the code for their client, which is also Electron.js. Don't know. Everybody who doesn't know what they're talking about, Electron, as I maybe said before, is if you use Discord or Slack or actually I think Steam is, no, it's not. VS Code, those are all Electron, and there's a web browser, a Chrome web browser built in, along with a little web server inside of it, and it's basically a miniature little website that's built into an app, and it just runs really quickly until it doesn't, right? But it has all the problems of any web browser actually built into it, so it's easy to take advantage of. I did a whole video about Electron. I may or may not do a new one about it now that my system's a little bit better. And if I do, it'll be, I don't know where it'll be. It might be in, I might have to make a rants. I have to rants playlist. Have you taken like an ultralight? I have not. And that's a little bit beyond a beginner topic here, but yeah. All right, so let me return back to I didn't realize that the only terminal uses Canvas, the text editor uses just HTML. I did not realize that either. Is that true? Have you confirmed that? I was once corrected. I was told that the reason because VS Code actually felt pretty snappy compared to Atom, and Atom I knew was all JavaScript. I could have swore somebody told me that they're using a Canvas for the rendering in the text-based browser part of Electron of VS Code. That would explain a lot, actually, if that's what they're doing. Anyway, so what do we got? We got some more to go through. So we're going to hit into you can check it in DevTools. Yeah, that would be a thing. Vim is away. Of course, Vim is away, but you know, we want to support everybody here. And this is like the first boost that we do besides autodidactic. So a lot of people may not even know Vim yet. If you want to know what Random TV is talking about, go watch Tools of Technologists about editors. Choose your own editor. Yeah, this is working on now. Chinese use Android. All right, so here we go. We're going to talk about something very important. It's called semantic content, and we've already talked about the meaning of content, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliberately do something. Actually, there's some video. There's actually already some really great images out on the internet, interwebs, that cover this, and I want to just demonstrate the difference to you outside of using this book. But I'll use the book as a way to show it. And but in order for you to understand this, you have to understand that there are two sets of elements that we're about to talk about that are at odds with each other, and some of them are semantic and they change meaning, you know, main, header, footer, and some of them are divisions of the page, and they are literally div and span, and they have no semantic meaning. And what's happening to the World Wide Web is it's being destroyed by div soup, because the applications developers a div is very nice for an application, but it's an absolute disaster if you're trying to make something that has semantic meaning and wants to be searched. So what we see is the unnecessary use of div for things. Most really good example of this is tables. So we haven't covered HTML tables yet. We will, but people are regularly telling people that using HTML tables is bad and that it's old and that it's a boomer tech. And the fact is that tables are semantic and they're recognized by screen readers for accessibility, whereas that div soup that you made using CSS Grid and Flexbox is a disaster because none of it is rendered properly. So, but they look prettier, right? Another problem here is when you see people make like search bars and stuff like that, and they don't use input elements, they use editable divs. And look, if what you're making is an application and never needs to be searched or anything, great. And usually if you have a form entry field, that's probably qualifies as an application instead of a document, right? But in the case of a table, no. A table needs, in fact, there's very good ways to navigate tables. I found out at one point I was kind of anti-table because of the conversational web that I had been considering, and tables can't be read to you very easily. And then I found out during that research that that a lot of visually impaired readers and stuff are actually set up to handle tables very well. They know exactly how to do it. They've been doing it forever. And now we have this huge movement against tables now that CSS Grid and Flexbox are out. And we'll talk about that later when we get to that part. But it's actually destroying accessibility and making content unnecessarily complicated, and which can't be read by people who are blind as well as people who don't have JavaScript or don't have CSS styles enabled. Tables are supported perfectly and wonderfully in Lynx and any other browser because they're semantic. They're a semantic organization of the content. They are not a stylistic organization of the content. And that is a really big difference. All right, so let me see if I can quickly find, let me read the chat here. Anything new? Partly due to view source plus notepad. Yep. Footer. Yes. I use, for a long time, I use footer, right, left, content. Yep. Fun fact, XJS uses tables and divs for everything. Menu bar, table picture, table with IMG tag inside. Fun times. That's even worse. Center, old school gang here. Yeah, we talked about that last night. We were playing with Center yesterday. All right, I got to go to work. Take care, Random. Make that $10. Thanks for stopping by. So let me I'm going to search for something randomly. Div soup. It's become it's become sort of a pejorative term for dumb web designers who do this. I just can't even deal. Now, thankfully, it's a long story. So this shows that you can extend HTML5 in ways that avoid divs, but it's not particularly popular. I'm going to go search for that on something that's not as disturbingly dark. Here we go. So search for bright div soup. So here's some more div soup. Let's see all the div soup we can find. Yeah, there's some really good div soup. Would you like another bowl of div soup? So, you can read this for yourself. What is div soup? So div soup is this. It's when you don't use anything semantic at all, right? And it happens because you're making an application instead of making a document. And divs are fine in applications. They're not good in documents. And once again, the problem comes because we're not thinking about documents, document web, and app web. You can have a site that has a document website and an app web built into it, right, almost seemingly right next to each other, even particularly, split the page even. But it's like functional programming, right? You can have a hybrid language, but it still benefits you to write a function, a pure function, instead of this procedure that doesn't know what it wants to be, right? That meshes with the state. You benefit from writing functions when you can, even if you don't have to do them all the time. So this, this separation of concerns and is really valid in when you're doing design. You want to think about docs and apps. And usually when you see a bunch of an application, you see divs. But if you see divs all over in somebody's blog, they're doing it wrong, right? Or their documentation. If they're using divs to do everything in their documentation, I mean, that's a really bad thing because you don't need it, right? So here's actually, this is a really good video, very visual. Look at this visual. So div span, header, nav, article, figure, footer. This is a really good one. Whoever made that, Jungle Disc, whoever that is, that's a really good one. Thank you. Give them credit. So this is really, really great. This is what we're talking about here. You can just divide it all up so that there's no meaning whatsoever to your divisions, or you can give specific meaning to your divisions and you can rank higher in Google search results. You can allow people to build search engines that search only for article content. So I think I made my point here. But this is what you'll regularly see, this kind of crap all over the place. And it's just, look, this is an application. So I'm going to let them kind of, if it's an application, fine. It's just a way of breaking the page down. If it's not an application, however, look at that div. This is, it's funny because it's so true. So div class. Oh man, look at this one, man. Now, but this one's not kind of fair. This is an app, right? This is an app. So div soup is allowed. We all love our div soup. Look at that one, man. Oh my goodness. Now this, what is this? Oh, this is a blog. Yeah, div soup on a blog. No, that's Twitter. See, Twitter is an app. Twitter's an app. So div soup's fine. I'm not gonna throw that under the bus for that. Web components, Polymer, yeah. Div. Stop using so many divs. The people, okay, so this is another thing. People who are down on divs are also not making a distinction between applications and documents. And so I really want to punch that point. I don't know how many times I had to say it so far. It's okay to use lots of divs and div soups if you're making an application. If you're making a document that has semantic meaning, or that, which is a, double redundancy, then no, do the right thing. All right. I think I made this point pretty well. So let's go see if anybody else has anything to say about that. It was all about the docs when I first saw this emerge. Yeah. Yeah. Off now. Cheers. Take care, Q. You only use H1, clear content, nice keywords, and good friend, refriend. On the site, where the site is done using something like Dreamweaver and the content cut and paste from Word doc. Right. Yeah. Dreamweaver. That's why Dreamweaver and front page and tools like them are so bad, because they have no idea how to think about your document. They don't know, because they're just, all they care about is how the thing looks and how it's organized on the page. And that's all styles. And that's not anything to do with semantic meaning. Div soup. Let's see. How's it going, Aurelia Lynn? Welcome. Autocode design tools as well. I have seen generators, so many docs like this, not even just a real web app per se. Right. So the auto doc generators, and by the way, this is one of the reasons that I am such a fan of Pandoc. Pandocument, Pandoc, we're going to do a whole series on this after this, is all about managing your knowledge as source. It's like taking the idea of semantics and just really adding to that, saying, okay, now I have all this knowledge. I want to store my knowledge in a way that's retrievable, that's shareable, that's sustainable, and that can be rendered in any other format any time. If I want to render it as HTML, great. If I want to render it as a PDF, great. If I want to make a textbook out of it, great. If I want to make a slideshow out of it, great. You can do all of that because you haven't violated the sanctity of the semantics of the knowledge. And so you've actually, used it. And that's, so this, nobody anywhere is doing any sort of video series of any kind on Pandoc that I've ever been able to find. I should probably go look on YouTube again and see if there's anything I missed. But the idea of thinking about your knowledge first and then thinking, okay, I want a website out of it, that's really important. I think that's the most important, frankly. And it's really near and dear to my heart because I believe that we really screwed up the original web by moving away from the document web, and we need to return to that. And I'm building a thing called, MemWorks Knowledge Net and the Essential Web and things like that. What would be the best semantic of a CV, a table, or a list? Well, that's funny you say that, Miluba. I don't know if you saw my other streams on this, but I'm actually building a career manager application that has a domain model that uses YAML. Yeah, so I'm using YAML. YAML is a structured data thing, and then you can render your document however you want. And I personally think I would probably use a list in mine. I think you could probably get away with a table, but I would probably use a list in mine. Because you can name the list and stuff. Resumes are interesting because they, people that are using them, they usually want a PDF of something, right? So they really don't care. It's a complicated topic. What is good to make clear code? Yes. All right. So let's do this. So use it if you want. For me, I think that is use it if you die. Yeah. Can they still use it when you die? Right. And I like that you said that because a lot of the stuff that's being created is completely unreadable on the web archive. And I still run into web designers on occasion who have no idea that web archive exists. Never seen it. And they don't even, let alone bother looking and see if their code is visible on there. And so, that's why I keep talking about this point. But I just really want to drum it into your head. All right. So main is the main body of your content. Now, to be fair, all of these semantic elements are very document specific. And that's why web application developers get really annoyed. It's like, I don't have a main. I don't have a header. I don't have a footer. I have an app. Why are you forcing me into the constraints of a document? I'm not a document. I'm an app. I'm Gmail. I'm Twitch. I'm whatever. You see what I'm saying? So it's like they can't, they feel constrained by that, and they should because they're not making documents. So as long as we can compartmentalize that kind of development, I think we'll be fine. So we have main, and then we have, so anyway, let's keep going. Main, headers and footers. As I said before, there's head, header, and heading. They're all three different. So a header, it's really funny to get them to talk about it. A header element is for introductory material, typically beginning at the front of the page, right? And there's some debate about whether you should put the navigation bar inside of the header or not. We'll just keep going there. And here you go, nav. So see, in this case, they put the nav inside of the header. I tend to do that. I put header and I put nav inside of header, and then I'll have main, and then I'll have footer, and then they have article. This is another use of header that I don't frequently use, but if you have an article, you can put a header. You can have the header for that article. I think newspapers and magazines and stuff might have more of a usage for that, but I don't use that a lot, mostly because my documents are simple, and I'm using Pandoc for the conversion, so there's not a lot of that going on. But when you're writing the template for article makes sense if you're going to have lots of things on the same page, but I don't like that. I'm more of I call it a knowledge node, and I'm like the smallest composable unit of knowledge is what I want, in that one page. And that means an article would always be just one page. That's just me personally. But there's a lot of usage for combining multiple articles on a single page, New York Times, that kind of thing. Neither head nor footer elements are permitted to contain nested header or footer elements. So there you go. And in the footer, that's where you put your copyright, things like that. Interesting note on this is that there are some specific, she doesn't talk about them, but I don't think, but there are some specific tags you can put inside of your copyright at the bottom that are recognized by search engines. And some of this stuff might come up by the end of the book, but if it doesn't, we probably should talk about it because there's such a need for, there's a real need for documents that can contain the same things. Same thing like with a Twitter, a Twitter card, they call it social media cards. there are a lot of there's sort of, they call it boilerplate. That means it's just HTML you use for everything. That'll help you be searched out. And I actually need to put it in my template. My template doesn't have a lot of that great boilerplate. But if you've ever posted a link to a website in Discord or Twitter and had it like flesh out a whole bunch of stuff and be nice and pretty, that's because they've included this extra content, some of which is in the header and the footer. Usually it's in the head though, not the header. So here we go. So here's again another unordered list for previous to next. They may or may not be on top of each other, might be next to each other. Sections and articles. Long documents can be broken into sections. The section has a broad range of uses, from dividing the whole page into major sections. And so this always bothered me, is nobody can agree on how to use sections. So it's really up to you. Some people use sections for multiple blog posts on the same page, and then they put the whole thing in an article. Some people put multiple articles on the same page, and each one of those has a section. So that always kind of annoyed me. But again, I'm mostly a markdown guy these days. Use the article. So article, there you go. There's your article with a section inside of it. And what else we got? Conversely, section ID equals it. So this is the flip side of that. You can have a section with an article in it, right? So whatever. Aside. Now, asides, I've always been interested in these. Where did I read this recently? I read a blog post someplace that talked about how asides are categorized by Google and other engines, and how they are minimized in the search material on purpose. So, and it was whether or not you want the bar on the side of your page, aside, just because aside usually is, a sidebar, doesn't mean that's what it has to be. And that I really felt like that article was compelling, because it was like, oh, okay, that's another use for aside. So if your web page is about some main topic and H1 represents that main topic, and you have a, oh, by the way, sort of thing to say, and I frequently will do those with block quotes or something, because Pandoc doesn't allow aside. It's actually one of the reasons I want to write my own markdown parser. Aside is actually a better rendering of that, because an aside says, okay, this is not part of the mainstream content on this page. This is some informational block quote on the side. Now, sometimes those block quotes that are, or not block quotes, but those, those informational blocks, the call outs kind of things, would usually have an icon on them. Sometimes those things are actually significant, and they mean, I have something to say here that's even more important than the content, and it is also related to content. Sometimes this isn't related at all, and I actually have an entire system of different emojis that I'll put in my little sections that basically call out the content in its relation to the other content, which is why I want to make my own parser, because I want to be able to say, okay, this thing is just an aside, whereas this thing here is not an aside. It's, it's if anything, it's a paragraph, or it's a subsection that needs higher priority, right? So it still stays at the same level of meaning. But again, all of this is about semantics and how you want to decide what that is done. Most of the time, you don't get to make these decisions. They're made for you depending on the tool you're using. And that includes me when I use Pandoc as my renderer. So you have to have a more customized tool if you want to create a more semantic meaning for the whole thing. And I actually do, and Pandoc does a pretty dang good job of semantic conversion of images to figures and things like that. But there's nothing related to aside, and I really want to add that. So I'm going to make my own markdown parser. Robot.txt, yep. I always make sure, good job. Some people will say that robot.txt actually invites hackers, because it helps people you're telling them what stuff you don't want them to see. On a web page, right? Yeah, whether you put your CV in a public forum or not is a different question. If you want to hide your website, don't try to put it in robots.txt, and definitely don't just think if you don't link to it, it won't be found. One of the hacks on Hack the Box is to brute force all the possible URLs. And if you think you're hiding a URL because it's not there, I guarantee you people will find it. Do it all the time. Okay, will you work through most all the HTML or just the basics? I'm going to work through what's in the book, and then I'm going to point you to what WG, which I already have, so you can go read the manual on this if you want to read about every single one. If you want to become a web developer, I really suggest you do that. That you literally read the entire what WG specification and read about every single tag. I believe that's more important than any textbook you might find if you're gonna do this for a career. If you just want to learn the minimum to make a site and be able to tweak a template you found online, then what is in the book is probably enough. And I'll be going into more of that when we get into the Pandoc stuff, because I believe the HTML that comes out of Pandoc is far more important than any of this other stuff that we've talked about so far. For example, aside and all that, those are important things, but they're not always possible when you are doing content generation. The website's not registered. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so that's what a sidebar is. Google Fonts. A lot of times the sidebar will actually be at the bottom of the page, and it will, it looks like a footer, but there's nothing that says the side needs to be on the side. All right, navigation. So navigation is really, really important. If you've ever been to a page that Google automatically puts the navigation menus on the main search page, that's because of this. In fact, I saw a statistic some time ago. I'm trying to remember where I saw it, but it was like 30 or 40% of hits to web pages don't even come from the main web page, because now that Google and DuckDuckGo and everybody else are making big old pages that have the menu items there, people are clicking through to those main menu items without even seeing what's on your main page. And the article was about why it's important not to put news and announcements just on your front page, because people are bypassing your front page all the time. And how are they doing that? Well, they're using nav, because those search engines will see the nav bar and go, oh, here's some navigation for me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make my own links for this, because semantics, right? And then they can go ahead and do that. So this is a really, really common approach. And this is one of those ones where I think everybody should do it. And because it's a really, really key information to help your users get to what they want. Onion. Yeah, you can have an onion. Addresses. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about addresses. I've never used it. I guess some people still use it. The address element is used to create an area for contact information for the author and maintainer of the document. It is generally placed at the end of the document in the section with a document. Address would be right at home in a footer element. It's important to note that the address element should not be used for any old address on a page, such as mailing addresses. It is specifically for the author contact information, although that could potentially be a mailing list. Follow as an example. So I've never used it, but I think it's probably a good idea. I think I probably will start putting an address element. I just, this gets into that thing I was telling you about with the standard. There's some standard stuff to put in your footer if you want it to appear that everybody understands, and I'm not sure that is address. So that might be the beginning of it. Documents online. Behind the scenes, browsers look up the markup, make whatever, and then put it out there. The only way the outline was created: article section, aside a nav, block quote field set, figure, dialogue, details, and TD. Nobody uses any of those anymore. Look, you can read the book. I don't use that. The inline element roundup. Now this is important too. So this is, new chat. I only use it the wrong way. Yikes! For mailing address, fail me. I was gonna say I don't. I've never used it because and apparently I was using it failure. Nav in the page. I've never put a nav in the page. I always put nav in header, but it can go anywhere. I would. I don't know if I would put nav in the aside because I know that aside gets downgraded in search. So that might be downgrading your nav elements. I don't know. Who knows, right? Google doesn't tell anybody anything. 3 monitors is where at. Yeah. Oh, right. Breadcrumbs for secondary nav. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. Yeah, we'll have to put that in mind. So we're now going to talk about the inline elements, and it's important that you understand that these are semantic elements. And we talked about that the other day. They are semantic. They are not stylistic. So even though it says EM and strong, or even if it says B for bold, right? It does not mean this has to be bold. It's a semantic element. And so here we go. On the street, you're likely to hear them called inline elements. Fine. These are usually inside of a paragraph block, right? Or inside of a list item. They are not block elements. They're inline elements. So here we go. EM, we did this whole thing yesterday. I'm not going to do it again. EM can be changed. It doesn't necessarily have to be, italics. It can be something else. And you can combine the two, right? Again, I did this already. I'm not going to skip on it. So here's all of the elements, period. These are all the text, like the ones that you would have inline. So we have anchors, which you click on and they link to that. ABBR for abbreviations. I never use that. Probably a good idea though. B, as I told you, B adds visual attention such as keywords bold. It's not bold though. It's where something would be used as bold. You can read the definition in WhatWG. It's where bold text would indicate a different meaning, as in a novel or something. But it doesn't mean emphasis. So it's not like when you come across the bold word letters in a novel, you wouldn't like say them louder or something. It means that they've been separated out semantically from the other content. Same with I. So italics means it's been separated out from the other content, and that would mean something like a species, genus, or definition or something like that. But there's also defining as the first occurrence of a term. I've been meaning to try to do this one right here. I've read about that before, and I've never actually used it. But now that I'm doing a lot of writing, a lot of these things assume a particular, as I said before, style of document. You got this massive single document, and then you have, the first instance of a definition is outlined, right? And so anytime you come to the first one, you would do that. The way that I think that our knowledge should be composed of, Zettelkasten or knowledge nodes, or this idea of composable knowledge, I don't think it lends itself well to this document format. And I think it's more of a component oriented approach to knowledge in general. So some of these things don't fly with me, because how do I know it's the first occurrence of a term? And this is a real big rabbit hole, because it's going to be like, well, what are you talking about? But this idea of composable knowledge addresses the problem of, I have two different lessons. Both of the lessons have to have how do I move a file or rename a file, right? Well, if I need to produce a finite instance of knowledge, like a PDF or a book or something like that, I need to have those instructions about how to move or rename a file in both of them. And rather than copying them, into the two things and maintaining them in those two places, I should maintain a single knowledge node that covers that thing, and I should create a template of some fashion that basically imports those things, and then I render two different output formats. One that they both have how to rename, but they might be about randomly different, completely different things. And I just want to talk about this because that's the fundamental approach of the knowledge net or the central web, and to this idea of knowledge nodes. because knowledge is not conveniently in a big front beginning to end way. And very frequently you need to bring this knowledge and compose it into different forms depending on how it's being presented. And that's already been covered through software development practices of, importing modules. So if we look at knowledge as if it's a module of content to be composed or imported into whatever rendering is being used, we get closer to the original intent of the web, which is, humans are very organic creatures. They're clicking around all sorts of things. They're not thinking linearly all the time. They're thinking about, well, what is that? Oh, I want to check this out, right? It's the very nature of the web. Meanwhile, we have this idea of a document and the first occurrence of a definition, which seems irrelevant to me because I can't promise when they're going to see that thing for the first time. And to do so would imply that I have control of the document from beginning to end. And that piece of the document, that definition, might get pulled into another document that might be, the third time. So this is a lot of the HTML design, including a lot of the semantic design, I think is broken because, for example, header and footer, right? That's per document, and it's not, I wouldn't have a header and footer in every knowledge node, right? But I do need one for the overall product of that composition of those knowledge nodes. And I know that that's a lot of talk, but I at least want to introduce this idea because we start to feel the pain points when we look at HTML, because it's got this kind of old school idea of I have a book or a pamphlet or an article and I have to go top to bottom, and the world of humans don't communicate like that. We not anymore anyway. I mean, we sort of do, but more and more we're just pulling pieces together of knowledge. So there's all of the links. I'm going to tell you the links that I find relevant and that I use. Of course, you have to use A all the time to link to things. I occasionally will use B just because it's fast. BR I use all the time. That's to force a break. I don't use those. Code I use all the time. That's to show you code. Data is actually really, really cool element that allows you to do all kinds of things. It's more important to use data as an attribute, though. Del is a new one. This will actually do a strike through usually, just so that this would be like if you wanted to have fun with somebody and make a joke, and then delete it and then type the real thing after it. But it doesn't really have a lot of usefulness outside of that. EM gets used all the time. This doesn't get used. Keyboard doesn't get used. Ruby RT. This has been deprecated. This isn't even available anymore. This is a really old list, actually. This is not used anymore. Strike through. This is totally deprecated. Dude, guys, don't even look at this anymore. I'm done with this. This page is totally out of date. Like totally out of date. If you want to see the list of actual stuff, go to WhatWG and look there. There's at least 3 things on there that are dead wrong. And at that point, I can't recommend any of that list to you. So go to WhatWG and read this. Oh, it's so bright. Why did I have to open it in that one? Let me go back here. I'm starting to get really scared of this book. I really liked it and I believe in it, but that stuff is like really, really wrong. Like, and it was updated. It was updated before 2017 when this book was put out. So now I'm wondering if somebody's not doing their homework, Jen, because I mean, when was this put out? So I'm going to show you an example of that. Let's do strike through. Strike through. Come on, I know you're there. Oh, I know why. We have to go to the elements of HTML. There we go. Here we go. So this is what you want. I'm going to give you this link. All right. Just forget that whole section in the book exists. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying it to help you out. So that's what you want to read. The book was written a long time ago. The book was written in the 90s. And so it has some really good concepts in it, and that's why I love it. But at the same time, it has, every once in a while, it'll have something that hasn't been relevant for 20 years. And then other times it'll have the latest and greatest, like CSS Grid, right? So I think it's the product of, an overworked author who can't keep her whole book up to date, but being asked to create a new release. And if Jen ever comes across this, I really appreciate the effort it took to even make this book. And I love where she's coming from on all of her approach to it. But there's some really significant, and by the way, this is a perfect example of the downfall of books for managing knowledge, particularly tech knowledge. This is why you won't see me writing a book that's not also accompanied by a knowledge base. Because the knowledge base, I can update. It's a living document. I can update it all the time, depending on my time or have somebody help me. As soon as you publish a book, you've just written a line in the sand. This has to be there, right? I mean, the Go, for example, the Head First Go is like ancient at this point. It's only 2 years old. I mean, but it's ancient in terms of web. So it's the whole nature of books in general. Having, I like it because I like that single author, the target audience, usually somebody who knows what they're doing is writing it. It's not just some random group of people writing a wiki. All of those things are great, but the big downfall is that people can't keep them up to date. And this is one of those cases, and it's starting to grate on me actually. I've been pretty forgiving as we go, but listing things like those elements that are not there anymore is at this point kind of annoying. Oh, it looks like S is still a thing and Q is still a thing. I stand corrected. ABBR, I swear these have been taken out. I swear they've been taken out. Maybe I'm confusing it with a different one. Tag omission, either tag is admissible. Flow content, context, blah, blah. Indicating document edits. To mark a span of text has been removed, use del. Oh, maybe that's what I was remembering. So that I do remember. Let me look at the other ones just to be sure. I want to be sure because I don't want to tell you wrong. I've never used the Q element. That doesn't mean you probably shouldn't be doing it. Phrasing context is expected. Citation. Q. Things that are impossible just take longer. Okay. I don't know why you wouldn't just use a quote, smart quote for that. Interesting. This is interesting. I might have to start using the Q. I'm not going to because Markdown doesn't support it, but I could see where it would be useful because you could, if you wanted to search for all the citations, right? You could search for the citations for everything, all the Q's elements in the page. I've never seen that used though, ever. If anybody else there has seen these things in practical usage, let me know. Oh. Okay, now I'm really confused. Example. In the following example, quotation marks are used instead of the Q element. Well, then why would you use the Q element? Because English. Inside the Q element must be quoted from another source, blah, blah, blah. Or inside Q elements. Quotation, punctuation, section, that is quoting the content of the element must not appear immediately before, after, or inside Q elements. Then why would I use it? That means I have to add smart quotes and stuff to the Q element in my styles, which would be annoying because I couldn't make it a smart quote. That's just no. Don't use it. W3C page. No. Don't use W3C. Use what WG for HTML. Use that for other stuff. Okay, let's go through the list again. There's a couple of them that I had questions about. So Ruby, I thought Ruby was out. Now, Ruby is not what you think, right? It's not what you think. That I remember. It's definitely not the language Ruby. So a Ruby element allows one or more spans of phrasing context to be marked with Ruby annotations. Ruby annotations are short runs of text presented alongside the base text. Primarily used in East Asian typography as a guide for pronunciation or to include other annotations. In Japanese, this form of typography is also known as furigana. Didn't know that. Never seen it. And that might be an Asian thing. So we have any Asians that have used Ruby before? SEMP I've never used. Sup and sub get used a lot these days. Strong, of course, is used constantly. Span is destroyed. So span is the same thing as div, except for it's inline, and it gets used all the time. because it's very generic and it's just about style. It's not necessarily about semantic meaning. Machine readable time data. I've seen that used a couple times, but U indicates a formal, yeah, underline. See, this is the weird thing. It's not actually, this doesn't indicate things that are underlined. It indicates things that might be underlined in text to indicate a difference in meaning. Misspelled words or stuff. Var, a variable or program argument. This one I know is gone. I swear to God, var is gone. I'm looking. It's still here, man. I guess it's still here. The var element represents a variable. This could be an actual variable in math or something else. Nobody does this, man. You know what they do? For this kind of thing, they use KTeX or LaTeX, and they usually wrap it in $signs. Stay tuned for the Pandoc series. I'll teach you all about that. Anything that has anything to do with math notation is KTeX or LaTeX right now. And if you're doing anything else, you're like, see this here? In this example, the quotation mark is a var. This is called MathML, and nobody uses it. Nobody uses it. They use LaTeX for math notation, but they tried to make like an HTML friendly version of it, and there are translators to it. So here it is, MathML expressions. So just say no. Just say no to MathML. I promise you. If you like math, you really, really want Pandoc, and you really want LaTeX and KTeX and MathJax. That's what you want. And it will do MathML, but MathML is by far the least popular of those options. And it's really important that you know that, because that is going to get you a sad day. All right. So, didn't know about it. Interesting. Yeah. Furigana. Didn't know about that. I don't use it. Ruby use it on servers, right? No. LaTeX. Yeah, I've been saying LaTeX, right? I've been saying LaTeX the whole time. It's not LaTeX. No, it is not. It is not. Is it LaTeX? I mean, I'll go see. I'll go check. How is LaTeX? It's one of the most hotly debated topics around. It's not latex, I'll tell you that. There you go. This word is pronounced LaTeX. LaTeX. In English, that is not with the KS pronunciation. English speakers normally associate with X, but with K. So that's the big thing, right? But this part is lay, right? So there. There's a whole video on it. How to pronounce LaTeX. 1,000 hits. 1,000,000 hits. Latex is for condoms. And rubber gloves. And nurses who get allergic. Have you seen those lawsuits? Very sad story. It's not LaTeX. No. I just proved it. Nope, the phonetic spelling of it right there. Said otherwise. What does Bluth say? Or Knuth, what does he say? Do we have him on? The guy who made it? Low-tech. No, it's not low-tech either. Nope, I'm cracking my fingers. What does that mean? I don't know. Let's keep going. I just don't trust this list. I don't trust this list. Not to mention the fact that it's like not even. So Applet is gone. Yes. Strike is Strike is the one. Okay. That's what I was confusing. S is still there, but Strike is gone. Font big center is gone. No reason. So what I would do is if you really, as I've said before 1,000 times, if you want to know HTML inside and out, read the doc, read the fancy document, RTFM, and look at all these other ones I've never used. Oh, that's the link types. That's different. Canonical, opener, pre-render. Yeah, I actually need to read all three of this again. So this is kind of fun. iframe, that's how you put YouTube videos and stuff. Let's go look at the ones that are dead. shall we? The map element is still there. Yeah. Image maps are still there. I thought that was cool. If anybody knows what image maps are, the 1990s, you can take a picture and you can identify certain sections of the picture. If you click on that certain section of the picture, it will go to a different place. You have the captions in the table and all that jazz. We can do that later. Forms, big thing. The calendar picker is a new thing too. That was relatively new. Anyway, I'm trying to find, we already talked about Marquee the other day. Scripts, I showed you that a little bit. Path2D, image, bitmaps. This is different stuff. I don't know what that is. Oh, the canvas element. That's how you make your games. Combinations without dedicated elements. Breadcrumb navigation. Interesting. Nav. So I do LIs for this, but you can do just plain old links. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. I'm getting sucked down a learning rabbit hole. There is the whole loading web pages, the window project, origin, browsing web. Nope. I was trying to find the deprecated ones. Like they have one that says the marquee you can't use anymore and blank's dead and stuff like that. Why was the TT tag not TTY? Good question. I don't know. Donald Knuth says LaTeX, even though that page said the other thing. He says LaTeX. Really? All right. He just wants to be different, confuse the hell out of everybody. I've never heard anybody say it that way. And I've heard people who've written books in it. They don't say it that way. So there. Okay, so the following is a brief example of our EM and strong text examples. We already did this live the other time. I'm not going to keep continuing. Here's the big bold versus thing. Alternative voice italic, and keyword or vertically emphasized text bold. Okay, so that's good. Strike through, annotated, underlined, small print. I don't use that very much, but you could use that. I tend to not use things that you can't use automatically with Markdown. And so, yep. Good stuff there that I know about. At least you know they're there. And that's the whole point of this, is knowing they exist. This is a really good example. The slab at the ends of the letter strokes are called serifs. I call them wings because serif means wing. En français, oui, il y a les français là. Comment on dit wings en français? C'est serif, n'est-ce pas? Vous savez? Oui. Aha. Je parle français, je pensais comme ça. So, I don't call them slabs. They're wings. They're little wings. That's why they're called serif. Like angels. Seraphim? Angels, right? Angels with wings? Seraphim. Je ne me souviens plus. Tu parles français? Eh ben... Comment vous ne le savez pas? Oh, les ailes. Mais serif, c'est un autre mot pour la même chose, hein? Pas vrai? Crisson, oui. Harry. Les ailes. Ailes de poulet. C'est les ailes. C'est pas serif? Mais que veut dire serif? Wings is modified. D'accord. Okay. I don't know. Just curious. I could have swore it meant wings. I mean, I know seraphim. That's how I think of it. Seraphim are like winged angels. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know if the etymology of it is correct, but I think that's what it is. Helvetica. I think that's a spelling error. I'm going to check right now because I cannot wait. I'm just showing how stupid I am. Do you spell Helvetica? Yep. Okay, Jen, that was embarrassing, man. The font that's had it, the only font that's ever had a documentary about it, and an author who claims to be a web designer, who actually is, I'm just having fun. I'm having fun. Misspells the word Helvetica. I bet she spells Comic Sans right. Ha! It's an inside joke. That's definitely an error. Thought it was. I mean, God, it's got to be so bad having somebody like me go through your book. I would not want me to go through my own book. Like too much. Yeah. Yeah. It's Helvetica, right? Yeah. So there's that. The slabs at the end of the letter strokes are called serifs. Fine. Simple change the font and voila. So that's a voice change. So that's a semantic change. Therefore, it's italic. It could be shown as italic, but not necessarily, even though it's almost always shown as italic. So actually, there's a lot of time when I you know what? No, this is wrong. This is wrong. I'm telling you, this is wrong. It's not bad. Merci. Ça fait longtemps. Ça fait longtemps. It's a nice play. I think this is wrong, and I'm not just trying to be a contrarian dork. I think these are wrong because I spent an enormous amount of time studying B and I, and I have to go down the rabbit hole again. I'm sorry. Because it specifically said it's not a change in voice and emphasis. A change in emphasis is emphasis. It's not I. So if I were going to say, but it might be a change in voice. So I hope I'm wrong on this. I'm going to go check. So let's go look for this. We're going to go to the top here. I have to use a graphic thing. HTML elements. Where are you? I. Text level semantics. I. There you are. The I element represents a span of text in an alternate voice. Let me read the one about bold. Maybe I'm mixing them up. So she's right. Bold. All right. Bold is the B element represents a span of text to which attention is being drawn for utilitarian purposes, not emphasis, without conveying extra importance. That's the one. I was mixing them up. That's exactly what it is. So B means, and you know, like you'd read a novel and it'd say, and on the sign it said, and then it would be in bold, just to show that was the stuff on the sign, as opposed to putting it in quotes, which is not a quote, right? So, yeah, there we go. So the frabinator and barbinator components are fried. That's weird to me, but oh well, fine. A rat scurries past the corner wall. Objects in a text adventure are highlighted as being special but used by this B element. Okay. So if you have a sword, you know, it's like, okay, that makes sense. All right. So now I know. Now we know how to use B and I in addition to EEM and strong. Ironically, when you do this stuff with Pandoc, it's all EM and strong. Unfortunately, there's no semantic meaning. I wish there could have been. I mean, it kind of upsets me that when they did Markdown, they made so many variations for emphasis, and we haven't got there yet. When they could have, instead of making multiple ways to do the same emphasis, they could have taken like the underline and actually said, this means underline emphasis, as opposed to this, right? And this is why I want to make my own Markdown version. The problem with this is, you know, it's a departure from other Markdowns, which, you know, it's whatever, right? And they have strike through, they have, and so, you know what? More and more, I'm like, I'm going to make my own subset of Pandoc that includes these things because I want to be able to have these nuances in the semantics of the generated content. And Markdown doesn't currently support these things. So yeah. In fact, small and all caps are supported in Pandoc, which don't make any sense at all because they're but there's no way to write a novel right now with Pandoc without resorting to either individual spans. I'm getting ahead of myself. Forget I said anything. All right. So any confused people? Italics is abused for icons. Yes, it is. You need to have italic on the code or use Notepad++. Very good if you want coding. Yeah. Aside, off topic, are you using Bash in place of traditional desktop GUI? Yeah. I don't use GUIs at all, programmer Nicholas. I hate them. Good morning. Okay, you guys, be nice. All right, so what do we got here? Short quotations. Again, I see no reason to use a quotation. I don't. To use the quotation element to mark up short quotations used to be or not to be in the flow of text, I will never, ever use that. And I think it's a mistake to use that. You can use it if you want, though. I think you should use quotation marks as quotation marks. So stupid. In fact, apparently some browsers actually render them that way, but they don't do smart quotes. And if you don't have smart quotes, you're not doing it right. So this is the thing where this is the reason Pandoc needs to come in. And it's the reason I still maintain HTML was a bad idea. And I wrote a whole thing on that. So, but you have to know it if you're going to be a web developer. Making up acronyms and abbreviations with ABBR element. That is overkill to me. I just don't understand why people do that. But I've seen this before because when you hover over it, it actually translates the thing. But that's stupid. If you're going to do that, just put parentheses right after the thing and provide it in long text so people can read it. The only reason you would do that is if you wanted to collect all your abbreviations and put them in a lexicon of some kind. And there's other ways to do that. You know, I don't like that one. I never would use it. Sorry. Nesting elements, that goes without saying. Je ne sais pas. Okay, so I'm getting grumpy. I'm sorry. Citations. The cite element is used to identify a reference to another document, such as a book. Honestly, when I use a citation like this, I don't use a citation element. I use a link to the page that has the book on it. Does that mean I can semantically go through the text and find all the citations? No. And this is one of those things that I think is an artifact from the old world of our academic writing, and I don't use it. Pandoc supports those, though, by the way. Pandoc supports all that stuff if you want to do that. Defining terms, definition, the first and defining instance of a word in a document in some fashion. I already told you I hate this because there's no guarantee that your listing is going to be the first occurrence of that in the document. So if you have a bunch of HTML snippets, which I do, essentially subdocuments, you don't know if that term is going to be the first term. In fact, I have an entire document for each term. And when I have a term like this, I link to the term in the knowledge base. So I'm not a fan of that, but now you know what it is. Subscript and superscript get used all the time. Obviously, those are really, really important. And you have to have them. You can get around them, though. This was all made before there was any kind of emoji and UTF-8 support. So what's more common is to actually not use sub and to use the actual characters for these things. Or even more importantly, this is a bad idea. All right. That is a bad idea. That is a really bad idea. That is a latex string. You should LaTeX. All right. Whatever. This should be KTAG or MATCHAX. You do not want to put math notation in your knowledge bases without using the premier language for language and the mathematical and scientific notation, which is LaTeX, which is a subset of which is KTAG, a subset of which is MATCHAX, and I'm supported by that. You do not want to use anything but that because your typography will be off, everything will be off, and it just don't do it. All right. This is why HTML doesn't cover all the bases. This is why you need a knowledge syntax that's more powerful than this, such as what you can provide with Pandoc, which supports all of these things. And okay, so you've heard my piece. I keep complaining about it. Je sais pas. I'm speaking too fast. I know. Uh, yeah, a total waste of time and effort. I agree. There is no shortcuts with the CLI. You either learn Bash or practice CLI tools rather than GUI, or you don't. You know, it's kind of true. Without robot, I put on Chinese servers without robot. Yeah, is that the LaTeX, Harry? Yeah, I think Harry and I agree that see, guys, everybody look at Harry's example. Thank you for contributing that. That is how you should write any sort of mathematical notation, because that is the language of math and notation. It is the default. It's called LaTeX, whatever, LaTeX, and it was created by Donald Knuth, and it is used in every textbook anywhere, which is why Pandoc Markdown is the only Markdown you should ever use and care about, because it supports that fully. A few others support it, but not nearly to the extent that Pandoc does. For people wondering, but pronounce LaTeX, but pronounce LaTeX. It's not just LaTeX. Somebody else, Doppeldankster, said it's actually pronounced LaTeX, according to Donald Knuth, which would be today's the first day I've ever heard anybody say it LaTeX, ever. I've always heard LaTeX, but what do I know? I'm not. It's not like I listen to Donald Knuth talk all the time for fun. Probably should though. Guy's a genius. So, Mark. This whole section is just getting me really spun up. Highlight text. The mark element indicates a word that may be considered especially relevant to the reader. One might use it to make highlights. Interesting. I wonder if it automatically adds any kind of highlighting. Can we try something here? Let me try something here. I'm gonna try something. A little bit of testing here. I want to see if I highlight this, if it actually has support for it already. Where's some good? There. Let's go here. Let's do. I want to see if the user agent already has support for this. All right. So where are you? Oopsie daisy. Did I kill my Chrome? Oh, there it is. Oopsie. All right, refresh. Hey, look. What do you know? Never used that, but today I learned that you can actually highlight your text by putting mark tags around it. Wondering when I would do that and if I want to support that in my version of Markdown. I really want to rethink Markdown and use things that correspond to. Another one too is I want to do spoiler, and actually Discord supports that. So there's I won't go there. Not right now. Not with you guys. I know you don't want me to get too off track. He wrote it like a French dude. British version. I don't know. I don't even know if that's true yet. That whole LaTeX pronunciation thing. British versus American, way off. Yes. I don't know what you're talking about, one-liner. What are we learning? We're learning web design, and we got another hour before we wrap up. This is a beginner sort of thing. Mark. So it turns out Mark works. I like that, actually. I'm trying to figure out a way to use that, because that does not, see, Pandoc Markdown takes a different approach and says you can't use HTML inside of Pandoc. And anyway, I'm kind of stuck thinking about this for a second. But yeah, let's move on. All right, time. So time data, I've seen this one used a lot. But you can put that. It's like sometimes I use a timestamp in the bottom of my auto-generated pages so that people can write JavaScript that uses it to detect how old the page is. and it'll say this page is 28 days old or whatever. So that's actually really commonly used. This is probably the first time you've heard about date and time formats. And this might be, since, the web design beginner boost is one of the first in the series, of all of my boosts, it's probably worth mentioning all the different time formats. So you might want to take a moment to read about, 24-hour clocks, the daytime. This is, there are different numbers for this. There's ISO, is it 8506 and ISO 8333, whatever. There's a bunch of different time formats, and you might want to learn the different ones that are there. They're the standard, pretty much the standard one that's most people are using is right here though. Which it's not letting me go to right now, but, and that is, she describes it here. The full-time format begins with the year-month-day, and that's so that it will sort properly lexically. The time section begins with the letter T, and that there's no space, and then the list of hours, a 24-hour clock, so, like 13:02:01, and then milliseconds dot whatever, and finally the time zone is indicated by the number of hours behind. So minus 500 or plus 500. There you go. So this is, knowing that date time format is really critical to being any kind of technologist today. It's used everywhere. So just know about that. That's also the standard ISO timestamp format for databases and stuff like that. So just know that. For more discretion. How's it going, Quint? Yep, you found it, right? Yep. LaTeX. Oh, you found a better one. I only saw the first part. So it is LaTeX. Or LaTeX. What? We're both right? Okay. It's not latex though, even though that's how it's spelled. Just because he had to be contrarian, right? It couldn't be something that everyone would see and just naturally understand. In true academic form, it has to be pronounced completely differently than it's written. Because if we don't want people to actually understand things, we want them to be confused by my brilliance. Sorry, Don. You academic, you. LaTeX and LaTeX. Sometimes you want to put the CV, especially when you're marketing yourself for achievements. Yes. All right. You guys are having fun talking about stuff. Let's go down. So we're past the date time thing. Oh, look at this. Look at this beautiful diagram. I forgot about this. Lots of stuff in this book. I've totally forgotten. I knew that there was a list of those HTML stuff, but again, go to what WG when in doubt. It gives you specific examples, and it's guaranteed to be up to date. So here you go. So here's the breakdown. I'll just let you look at it. This fractions of a second sometimes is like 9 or 10 characters long. Yeah, like nanoseconds. Yeah, instead of just milliseconds, sometimes it's nanoseconds. So yeah. And it's not the easiest to read, but this is a thing that you'll see. I have seen this before. I've seen this used before on pages that they want to use JavaScript on it, and they want to be able to read this more usably. This is really, you couldn't read this if you wanted to. Remember how we were using JavaScript to like read true or false attributes and stuff like that? If you wanted a time, then you could read this time attribute, and it would be, it'd be a date and time right away. And so you would get, you'd get a date and a time. It'd be really great. So I think that's probably worth using a lot if you're going to timestamp anything in HTML. That's a great idea. Machine readable data. The data element is another tool for helping computers make sense of content It can be used for all sorts of data. This is relatively new, if I remember right. I want to go find out when it was added. Let me go find data. And data. Data. The data element represents its content along with a machine-readable form of those contents in the value attribute. The value attribute must be present. Its value must be a representation of the element's contents in a machine-readable format. Machine-readable. When the value is date dash or time-related, a more specific time element should be used instead. Interesting. So again, I don't use this one ever. That's a good example. Look at that. So data is a table, by the way. We haven't got there yet. So data value equals 99, but this is 99. So that value, that's interesting. There's other ways of doing that, but I like that a lot. That gives you a sort of a visual representation of something that can be structured better, which is great. And that makes manipulating that easier from application types of things or from just, search engines. So I have to probably start using that one. Must reflect the content, good old reflection. I was just going to say, the data dash attribute is more common, right? So you can put a data dash on anything and any of the other elements. And that's what I've seen. I've never seen data used as an element itself. But I've seen data dash attributes a lot. Somebody mentioned that the other day when I was trying to use sum as an attribute, and technically I had to put data dash sum for when you want to add your own attribute to a thing and you just want to invent one. The HTML5 standard way to do that is to put data dash and then whatever name you want, and then you can make it any kind of attribute you want. Any comments on that? LaTeX. See you, Doppeldanker. ISO 8601, yeah. Milliseconds. I'm not a millionaire. Other stuff like that. I just wanted my information in as private. Okay. Let's keep going down here. Inserting and deleting text. I've seen this. I think I've seen this used in the XML inside of a Microsoft Word doc. But I don't know why I would use this. The insert and delete elements are used to mark up edits. These elements rely on style rules for presentation. There is no dependable browser default. Both the insert and delete elements can contain either inline or block elements depending on what type of content they contain. I think there's a lot of assumptions going on here. This would be that you would be, if you were editing, if you're using, does anybody know of an editor that uses this? I've never run into this other than what I think is in it's either LibreOffice or MS. I've seen like a lot of times when you're doing like annotations and stuff like that in a PDF or something, if the output is going to be HTML, you might see those tags in it. But these days, when describing to someone what to remove and insert, these days I don't see that used a lot. I guess if you were trying to communicate in a staged content environment, what to take in and what to take out, that might be a thing. But I don't know. I'm unaware. That would definitely have to have a tool involved. On PDF, you have a lot to exploit. Yeah, I know. So I guess let's just put it this way. It's supported. There's a tag for it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's used a lot. I've never seen that used in the practical wild out there. I've never seen it. Yeah, for teaching materials, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could mark up your student stuff and say delete this and insert that, right? But then you'd be coding for them. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Um, and part of the problem is that all of this stuff is kind of useless without a tool that'll do the editing and put the HTML in for you. Now we're learning how to do it from the command line, but in in practice, uh, students and teachers, for example, are not sending HTML back and forth to each other. If they are, they're doing it in some way that's being, communicated through another application that's doing the rendering for them. And they're not doing that. They're sending Word docs back and forth to each other, or they're using Markdown, and or they're there's a million other things they can be doing, or they're interacting through through just Discord and Slack and stuff, and they're making live edits to things, or they're doing if they're actually collaborating on a project, they're not doing inserts and deletes. They're making pull requests. So once again, I think these tags have, they make practical sense for a different time, but the nature of how documents are edited right now kind of makes them defunct, because if you were going to do this, rather than doing insert and delete, you would just delete it, and then you would send a pull request that showed the differences, and then you would make those changes. That's how work gets done today. So yeah. Maybe, I mean, if you had an online book, maybe, I guess, but I've never seen it used, I guess, but it exists. Adding breaks. Now this gets used all the time, and this is a part of Pandoc as well. This is when you want to force the line break, and this is particularly so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow. That's a Mr. Robot quote. William Carlos Williams. Yep. So yeah, that's one of the cases where you would definitely use a BR. That's a line break, hard line break. They get used all the time. So what else we got? Unfortunately, BR is easily abused. Yes, this is so true. I've seen people put 5 line breaks because they wanted to space their things apart. Don't do that. Really, really bad form. Yeah. So let's see. There you go. If you have a list, use a list, right? Word breaks. I have never used a word break, but I know it's a thing that people do. A word break element lets you mark the place where the word should break, a break opportunity according to the spec. I don't even think that's recognized, to tell you the truth, but it's really, really hard to test. So it's cool, though. It's really cool. These kind of things are interesting because they assume somebody is writing in HTML. How many people out there during their schoolwork or anything are just writing HTML for all their notes? And how many are going to bother to put a word break in the middle of their words? This is the problem with HTML. It's not PostScript or PDF, and it's not Markdown. Markdown is made for writers who deal in text, and PDF and PostScript is made for being generated from like a Word doc or something like that. It's in the middle. And that makes it not really practical for any use, because but we have to learn it. We have to learn it because we have to know about how those other things are being translated into that thing, right? And if you were putting a word break in the middle of a word, that means you're probably a publisher and you care about how to split this word up. And if you're doing that, you're not writing it in HTML. No, if you're doing that, you're writing it in LaTeX or LaTeX. Both pronunciations are fair, apparently. Do you have a posted curriculum somewhere we can look up what's going to cover in the future? Yep. rwx.gg/boost. And okay, so let's keep going. Accommodating non-Western languages. This is a big thing. I don't know why you would do this. But if you want to do a span and then tell what kind of languages, you can do that. These days with UTF-8, this is not an issue anymore. So I think semantically, particularly because this is the span, right? So a span and div have no semantic meaning at all. So this says, I want to draw this like this particular way. We don't need that anymore because you have UTF-8 now. All right, so let's go down through this. Declaring a primary language of a document by using 2 meta characters. Yeah, okay, so this is important. Let's actually talk about this. This is left off of the standard, but you really should do this no matter what. And so let me add it to mine. So you should tell the world what kind of language your code is in. Am I on the right page? All right, so to do that, you go up into the HTML tag up here. And this is very common, lang equals en. And you can either do en-us. If you're US, you can do UK, whatever. That will help you with a bunch of things. It'll help you with spelling. It'll help the web browser know what to do. So we haven't talked about it in the past, but that's the standard way to show that. Okay. Yeah, React is great. Lol. So declaring primary language for a document by using 2-letter code. Yep, you can go read about it all here if you want to. I just showed you what to do there. So use the lang attribute in the HTML to declare the language for the whole document or for the individual elements. And that, I think, is more important than this. This is important, though. So the whole direction left to right, RTL left to right, that's something I've never experienced, but I imagine that's really important. So if you're working with internationalization of some kind, I'm sure you're using that all the time. Anybody here ever done that? Anybody in the chat ever work with left to right text or right to left in any form? You can do fun things with it. Let's actually try that. Let's try a span with dir equals RTL. I wonder if it's built in to the user agent. I'm just curious. I want to have some fun with this. So span dir equals RTL college span. All right, let's try that. What did I put it on? Nope, during college it didn't work. No worky. Oh well. I mean, some tools might reverse it, but that would be a stylistic change. You can't actually apply a style change, so I know this is not part of the class today or the whatever session today, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's inspect it and see if we can change that with just a source. Span direction equals RTL. Did I do RTL? I meant left to right. I didn't. I'm so dyslexic. I kind of am, actually. But it still didn't change it. I wanted to reverse it, but no, didn't work. Oh well. It must have to be like the right. Wait, did that break it? Did I break it? LTR. Isolate Unicode BD span attribute style. I wonder what the standard ones are. Wait. Span. Okay, wait. New element. Here we go. Span. Direction. Left to right. Yep. No effect. Maybe it has to be 2 words in there. to went to during his days at college. Nope. No worky. So apparently that's not a thing. At least not in the default. It might work in Firefox or something, but not there. Any comments on that? Why are we talking about Playboy? Did I have it backwards again? I tell you, I'm dyslexic. Arabic is right to left. Okay, I apologize. I really am a little bit dyslexic. So there. Yeah. What? Oh, wait. I swear I changed it. Why is it refreshing already? Did it already refresh? Inspector style sheet. Right to left. Still nothing. Oh well. I'm doing it wrong. I don't really care because I don't use that, but I'm curious about it because those of you who do international kind of things, you might care about it more than I do. Yeah. You think, well, I was thinking there might be a style change you can do to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think you're going to have to actually reverse the order or something. I know you can make text go up and down, for example. Maybe we'll know about that when we get to that. For a little post, let's add small time and all this other good stuff. So here's some stuff that they added. So you can go ahead and add that on your own project. You might want to try those ones. I did kind of comment on the ones that are more important than the others. And so there. Yeah, you can go put those on there. Generic elements, div and spam. Okay, so this is an entire topic, and I'm going to boil it down really simply. Div is a block division of the page somewhere. It could be the whole page. It could be the whole page broken up into little divs. And this is why div soup is a thing, because that's how you make an application, right? It's just a bunch of divs floating around doing different things and moving. You can actually make an entire game just using HTML where you're making divs of aliens with stuff that's rotating around and them go all around the screen. You may have seen this actually. If you see like, snow falling and the snow, it's Christmas time and things like that. People are using span and div to identify specific bits of HTML and then make those things do whatever. Div and span are also really important now that we're doing component-oriented design with things like reactive programming in React or Vue and things like that, where we're saying, okay, I want to take this entire section of code and it might have markdown in it. Sometimes they'll even put style tags in it. And it'll say this style here applies to everything inside of this div. And the important thing to take away, the TLDR of div and span, is that div and span are for appearance and style and stylistic division, not semantic division. I'm going to say that again. So div and span are for stylistic division and inline separation, not semantic separation and division. So they don't add any meaning to the content. In fact, they're supposed to be invisible. In terms of the semantics, if you had a robot go to your page, your robot should be able to know everything about the page, its content, the tables, the titles, the headings, the highlighted text, the subscripts. It should know about all of that stuff, and it should just be able to completely ignore div and span. And if a robot visiting your page has to do any work if you expect it to know about div, that a div has semantic use, that it's actually got meaning, then you're doing it wrong. Bottom line. That is literally the definition in HTML5 of these elements. And there are a lot of people who are not following that specification. And this is part of the specification you don't want to mess with, because, and I said before, we made a really big deal about I mean, there are people who are even more pedantic than me about this, who just like have no good to say about anybody who uses div. And as I've said before, if you're making an application, fine, use div to your heart's content. There's no robot here. We don't care. Nobody's going to index my Twitch stream, right? It doesn't make any sense. But in that case, yeah, go crazy with div and span and all that. But if you're making something that you want to live on the web for a long time, it's a document, a web documentation, a blog, an article, the notes for Twitch or something like that. Those should be semantic elements, and div and span have no business there, other than I want to make it look different. I want to apply a different style to this box. But that stylistic change, if it's a call out or something, should also be accompanied, or maybe not even done with a div or a span. It should be done with an aside or a main or a footer or a section or an article. And then you're saying, okay, well, that content isn't as important as this other content, so I'm going to put it in an aside element. And I'm going to give the aside element, the stuff inside that element, I'm going to give it a different style. Right? But you don't need a div or a span for that. Yeah, right? So just this gets abused all the time, and it makes me crazy because it's unnecessary. Right now, the most frequent abuse of divs is for tables that are not needed. You can accomplish exactly the same thing with a CSS that people are doing with CSS grid and tables right now, that you can do that with an actual table and an HTML table, and then you can apply those same styles, and you can maintain the semantic meaning of the document and the ability for blind people to read it, and you won't get sued by Pizza Hut like Pizza Hut did. So just know about this difference. The fact of the matter is, there's not a lot to say about div and span. They literally are just there to divide things up and to apply styles to different sections. That's it. So you use span is what you use when you don't have, and one of the other inline text, semantic tags doesn't work because there's no difference in semantic meaning, and you actually want something to be pink, even though the fact that it's pink doesn't mean anything different, right? So use these very, very sparingly. Be very careful with them. And just to know that these are primarily associated with web applications and not web documents. And think about those two things separately, even if they're contained in the same screen window. That'll help you. That'll help you be a good web designer. Divide it up with div. So here you go. So this image is divided up. It is possible to nest div elements within other div elements, of course, but don't go overboard. I showed you lots of examples of that. You should always keep your markup as simple as possible. So add a div element only if it is necessary for logical structure, styling, or scripting. And scripting is another reason to do this. So if you want to, again, as soon as you're doing logical structure, styling, and scripting, you've got an app, right? And Jen doesn't talk about the concept of an app versus a doc, and I wish she would, because in fact, this is why I need to write a book on this, because I'm not a professional web designer. I was Nike's internet webmaster, but the more important element of this whole conversation is, this distinction. So if I write a book on it, that's what it'll be focused on, because we really are losing the battle here. Defining a phrase with span. So, yeah. So this is interesting. So this is a pretty legitimate reason to use this, right? This is a good example. I love this example, actually, because here you have all the semantics covered, right? And you have the span, which is going to tell you to make this into a, now that's actually a bad use of that. You should probably use a URL for this. I would guess I would use the tell : URL for this, because that's actually on a mobile. This is dated. So guys, I have to do so much here. If you do tell : and then put the number and you put it inside of a URL, like just as if it were a link, when they click on it, it'll dial it. And so this is really dated. This is a bad example, but the span is a good example. Span says, I want to draw this like a telephone number. It doesn't say like the time semantic element, right? It doesn't say this is a telephone number. This says, I want this to look like a telephone number. And so that's different, right? So that I'll maybe change the font on it or something like that. ID and class attributes. Okay, we're getting pretty far along here. Let me go back to the chat. We're not talking about Python right now. Yeah. HTML. You need to HTML to go HTML5. No. No. The only HTML you should learn right now is HTML5. Hey, that's pretty cool. Look at that cool kitty cat. How to change the Python to, port for mobile. Yes, I did see that. Very cute. But stop doing that. Don't do that anymore. We're in the middle of a session, dude. It's really cute, but stop it. Okay. Thank you. I mean, if you have a question about HTML, I'm happy to hear from you, but otherwise be quiet. We have a half an hour and you can do whatever you want in here, okay? Come back and bother me with that kind of cool stuff when we're not doing this stuff. When we're not doing beginner time, okay? All right, so ID and class attributes. In the previous examples, we saw the ID and class attributes used to provide context to generic div and spam elements. So this is, I don't know why she's going into this right now. I kind of want to skip it. Because I don't think you should talk about that at all until you start talking about CSS. And oh God, she's talking about JSON already. No, man, we're not going to talk about it. Not in that order. This is all over the place. This book is really breaking down bad. You shouldn't be covering structured data right now. That has no business being in this conversation. It's just going to confuse you. And ARIA is a big thing. That's how you make stuff so it can be read if you're blind and stuff. Character escapes are an important thing, and entities are important. And the special attributes are important. Those are all HTML things, okay? All right, so entities are important. We're gonna have to do that another day. I'm going to probably end with ID and class since they talked about div. I imagine that's why she pulled it in. When I teach this, I don't teach anything about ID and class until we do a style, because we can't practice it. Yeah, I can't show you what ID and class do unless I teach you CSS right now. So suffice it to, I don't like this order at all. Because I don't want to teach you the CSS selector tags right now. And that's what these are, ID and class. So we're going to put a thumb tag in ID and class until it becomes time. All right, so just skip this and just know there are two special attributes called ID and class, which help you associate styles to everything later. Okay, and rather than leave you hanging, I'll give you one quick example of that. Okay, so but that has no business being there in the conversation. That kind of upsets me that you put that in there already. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna say underline me as a class. Okay, classes begin with dots, and we can say text decoration underline. We haven't learned CSS at all, so don't feel bad if you don't know what's going on. And now I can say, I can add a class to that span. Where's my span? And rather than be college, I can say, I can give it a class and say class equals underline me. All right. And now when I reload it, you'll see it. So now we see college is underlined, right? But the thing about a class is you can do two at a time. So I can say underline me, and I could say pink, right? So you see how there's a space in between? So now I can put this, I can say I want another class that's called pink. And if it's got the pink class, I want to make it pink. So then we do, well, color pink. And I'm using like natural names. And so now when I refresh, you're going to get a pink. Okay. And you can mess with those things from the console as well. So you can actually do, do we have a lead in here still? No. All right, so let's go get it by ID, shall we? So let's give that thing an identifier that's supposed to be unique. Now, their identifiers are allowed to be more than one in a page, and people sometimes frown upon them. I'm going to say this one, but you can actually have more than one identifier, but it's a bad idea. In fact, some people would say not even using identifiers at all. But this is why I didn't want to tell you about this right now, because this is all full-blown CSS conversation. But since it's there, so how do I select an ID? Well, so I say this one, see the hashtag in there? And now you know the three main CSS selector types. There's like element selectors that don't have any prefix, class selectors that have a dot in front, and ID selectors that have a hashtag. There's some 27 different types of selectors, and they get really complicated, and we'll talk about them during CSS. But those are the three main types. And so then I can say this one, I could say, I don't know, font face, actually font weight, font size, how about that? Font size 2 EM. And then I reload, and it's bigger. Okay. And you can actually do things like you can say, let el equals get document, get element by ID, which is the old way, or you can do query selector. But ID, if I do by ID, I can just type the ID in here, and I can say this one, and now I get an EL that has everything. See that? And I can actually take away the class. I can go into these styles, the class list, right? So this is all the class list, and I can actually pop the class list. So I can say, should we do pop? Oh, I don't know. We'll see here. Actually, I can add other classes, or I can remove them. So remove pink, and it makes pink go away. See that? And I can add back pink, and I'll add it back. So the really cool thing about that is, as you can see, you can script changes to classes that will change anything that has that class in your entire page. And so that allows you to interactively really, mess with your styles and do all kinds of fun stuff. That's way more deep than I wanted to go, but since you took us down the ID and class thing, I thought giving you a quick little demonstration of what's to come, and you'll be able to understand all of that, was worth doing. So let me see if I've lost anybody here. Look at your comments. Let's see here. Even though I only know HTML, how's it going, Bose? HTML and CSS very well. I still go on free code camp once in a month. Complete their sections. No shame in reinforcing. I already know. That's fine. I find free code camp to be misleading and wrong in many places, and I have 40 people who couldn't complete even a single web page after going through it as an objective test of their ability to learn after receiving the web design certificate. So I can't recommend it in good conscience as a primary resource. The best resource of all is the book I've been referring to you, and just looking at other people's code. If you do free code camp for web design, make very sure that you have a lot of supplementary material, because it's not enough. I've proven it. How's it going? It's gone, Wizard. Yes, it's very important. Secondary account. Good morning. Man, everybody's waking up, it seems like. For class you code in one group, it's very important. Can you do it? It's important to be in a group. Yeah, you don't have to be, but you can make friends and do stuff online like we're doing now, right? Uh, Tahiti, it has nothing to do with what we are doing right now, but do you already know when you are jumping into JavaScript part? Yes, and that's going to be in next two. We're going to do next. Well, we're going to do a little bit of JavaScript when that comes up in the book, and then we're going to be doing the JavaScript Way is the book we're going to be going through, which is free after we do Pandoc series after this. And we're not going to go deep into JavaScript. We're just going to get enough JavaScript to understand what it does and how it manipulates a web page and what loose typed languages look like and all of that. We're not going to use JavaScript primarily to learn how to code. We're just going to show how it affects a web page. I'm going to be using Go and C as the primary languages to learn the nitty gritty of coding. You put your code on one block and after you're coming back. I don't know what that means. On my to-do list for Christmas, New Year, learn JS to improve my stream. Yeah, but I'm too lazy. Join the club. No, you can learn it. The JS way is very thin. I think you'd really like it. The JavaScript way. Look it up. It's really great. Going good, Rob. Hope your holidays are excellent. Me too. I had a pretty good holiday. The JavaScript, the good parts, is funny and ancient and thin and useless. It is so old. It doesn't cover anything. It doesn't cover anything. I'm telling you, read the JavaScript way. It uses the style guidelines. It only teaches you ES5. It doesn't 6 actually. It follows the Uber style guidelines. It's the only thing you need. I swear. Start there, and before you go to anything else. I've gone through the whole thing, and it's fantastic. Let's see. 2 examples. What do you do? Code blah 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 image and code more on the block. I don't think I did that. Thanks. It's very thin. We have to find if your code is good. For testing it. That's cool. That's it. It's a joke. Yeah, it is a joke. You don't know JavaScript. It's a horrible book. Since you brought it up, I'm gonna give you the 5-alarm fire red alert. Do not read anything from Kyle Simpson or his stupid book. You don't know JavaScript. Don't read it. Just skip it. Make it the last thing on your list if you have to read it. Please promise me if you're just starting your out that you will stay away from that book and that horrible author. I hate that book. The book is so bad. It confuses the crap out of beginners all the time. And it's not for beginners. It's not even designed to be beginners. It's full of this hubris, pedantic crap that talks down to you. And I cannot more strongly recommend against anything Kyle Simpson does. I normally don't get that personal, but he really triggers me, man. So anyway, okay. So been around trying to learn TypeScript and I found the learning curve steeper than learning Rust. I think it is. I think TypeScript is pretty, I don't know if it's higher than Rust. I can't speak to that. It's Airbnb. Thank you, Maluba. It's Airbnb. Thank you for the correction. Yeah, I hate with a capital H. You don't know JavaScript because he doesn't know JavaScript. Ask him how many times he's produced any JavaScript on an enterprise application architecture. Dude, it's particularly if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, stay away from that book. There is a much better book that is written by a French educator that's much simpler, that will start you out better. It will write better code. You'll be a happier person. Go learn the JavaScript way. Okay? And then we'll be fine. I'm gonna like leave that aside for a second. Around 13 months ago into JavaScript, it does come off as a beginner book. The way he sells it. It's not a beginner book. Free Code Camp. Don't use Free Code Camp either. Not for your first experience. The JavaScript in Free Code Camp is pretty dang good, but it's not for beginners. I have to calm down now. You guys keep recommending things that everybody else recommends to each other, and I have to deal with all the fallout from this crap. Yeah, the one from Baptiste is really good. Okay, so that's why I get triggered by it, because I have to deal with the people who don't know crap, who just went through the whole thing and now they're frustrated. They're ready to give up coding. They don't understand it, and now I'm left with picking up the pieces. I'm not gonna say that right now. Oh, are you, Harry? Thank you for that. I needed to calm down. The best way I'm telling you, Look, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the situation. All right. I'm mad at the situation because there are better resources out there, and people don't take the time to recommend those resources. They're quick to make a book that says, you don't know JavaScript, come buy my book. That's open source, but not really. What's wrong with Free Code Camp? Where do you want me to start? Starting with the fact that half of it is inaccurate and wrong, or the fact that I've put 40 people through the web developer certificate, not a single one could make a web page afterward. That I had that. I did it as an experiment. It doesn't teach it correctly because it doesn't teach it in a comprehensive way. It teaches you little pieces, and then you pass the level and you get to the next level, but it doesn't ever test your knowledge of the previous level. And so you get through the whole thing and you think you know what you're doing, and you're full of Dunning-Kruger effect. And then you're really confident, like, oh, well, look, I got a certificate and everything. And then you go do it, you can't do shit. Over and over and over again, that happens. The creator from Free Code Camp himself, when asked on a Reddit forum or something, is this enough for me to get a job? And he goes, oh, obviously not. You have to actually make stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't you recommend people make stuff from the beginning instead of having them spend literally a month, of 3 to 4 hours a week going through your certificate program and not being able to do anything afterwards because you don't have any level of repetition in the whole system. There's no repetition. There's no hands-on development. You're using tools that no professional uses. And then you walk away thinking you can code. And when someone says, make me a web page, you go, I don't know how to do that. Where should I put it? What do I edit it with? What's a body tag? What's a doc type tag? Because go look at it. It covers doc type once. There's like in the entire thing, there's only one exercise that has you put body and HTML and the whole entire web page together to get as one piece. The way to approach this is to use Jen's book. Jen's book approaches it as a professional college professor should, and she's also a professional designer. Mr. I graduated from a boot camp and now I'm going to start a nonprofit to save the world, who was a principal before and decides to get into technology, is not the place to go to learn this stuff. You want to learn it from Jen, who's been a professional her whole life, who's maybe fallen behind in her book somewhat, but you want to learn these skills from people who know these skills, not from people who decided to make some educational resource about it. Okay, I gotta calm down. Probably time for me to check out because I'm getting kind of upset. For follow, yeah. What, people pay me to follow me? Yeah, they can pay me if they want. I'm here for you. I'm not here to make money. If you guys want to support me, I appreciate that. But being opinionated makes learning more entertaining and enjoyable, making us think. Look, you can disagree with me, be your own person, but those are things that you've asked me about, or I feel very strongly about. And unfortunately, they do involve human beings that I strongly disagree with. Now, I know that their intent is right. Usually their intent is in the right place. And just like my intent has been in the right place, and I've been oh so wrong before. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm better in that regard. Euler project. Yeah, Odin project is pretty good too. I like the Odin project way more than Free Code Camp. The D language, I think it's cool and I want to learn it. That's what I think. More than 15 years, language agnostic, more about algorithms. Yeah. Yeah, I think learning to code is different than learning to do web design, and they're not related. It's the biggest difference between the Eloquent JavaScript, which is another amazing free book, by the way. So there's Eloquent JavaScript and the JS Way. Those are the two premier resources. After that, if you're going to buy a book, get Ethan's book that Jen also recommends called Learning JavaScript, which is really outdated. So Eloquent JavaScript, the JS Way, and then Eloquent JavaScript, these are both free resources. Eloquent JavaScript, however, is much more verbose, and it takes you through learning to program, and you just happen to be doing it in JavaScript. The JS Way is 100% dedicated on learning JavaScript in a web browser in the way that it was invented and what it's meant to be used as. And that's why it's much more succinct. It's easier to get through. I've had a lot of beginners get through it and just love it. They just keep raving about how simple and easy it is to work with and how it just helps them make things happen in their web browser that they've wanted to do, like I've been sort of demonstrating here. Yeah, Photoshop and GIMP and stuff like that. CSS equals magic. It really does. Okay, so let me cool down. I'm a little bit cooled down. I am who I am. I'm not gonna walk away from who I am. Uh, yeah, you know, I have opinions, and you know, at least I'm telling you that you can have your own opinions, and uh, but I do care. I care. I do, because I've been around long enough to see the whole thing, and I don't want to see this go in the toilet again. Um, okay. I mean, again, if I don't think anybody should ever say that book sucks, right? That's a bad thing to say. You should say that book sucks because X, Y, Z, blah, 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 and then let you make your own decision. I call it starting. Don't start with conclusions, right? But when people start recommending bad resources in my chat, that's a really quick way to get me spun up really quickly, because I need to make, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. At least hear me out. And then you can hear me out and make your own decision, and you can go read Kyle's book if you want, and you know, do whatever. So anyway, where are we in the book anyway? So we are at the end of IDs and classes, and so I feel like this is when I write this book, my own version of something like this book, I would not introduce ID in class at this point, but that's where we left off, and you saw me using ID in class in CSS, and then also using that within JavaScript, so you can kind of get a sense of how those pieces go together. So if you want to if you want to rewind right now before my rant and watch that little integration segment again, that's what we need to understand about IDs and classes. Okay. And I hope I didn't wake the neighbor up. I think I might have. Oh boy. Okay. So there you go. There's your aside. Classification with class. So we talked about classes. I don't want to get any farther than what I already told you. Ideas for identifying, classes to classify. The biggest difference is that classes frequently have more than one in them with a space, and you saw me remove and add the class with JavaScript. You don't do that with ID. ID is an identifier. Okay. Global attributes. Okay, this is interesting. So these are attributes. Remember, attributes are the key value pair combinations. We went kind of down a rabbit hole about Boolean attributes last session. But here are all of the attributes that you can add to a thing. And they do different things. Let's change the language, change the style, change the ID, hidden. Some of these are better controlled through styles. Content editable is a really common one, though. This is kind of a fun one I want to show you real quick. So content editable actually makes it so you can change the stuff in your page with the web browser. I'm going to try to make one here. So let's make this one content editable. And I don't think you can add that as a style. I don't remember though. Let's see. So where's our college thing again? Okay, we got the span down here, right? So let's go ahead and add content editable, which it's just we learned the other night means it's true, right? And that means that when I reload my Linus Torvalds page, I should be able to change it. Pretty cool, huh? Not weird? I don't know why you do that, but you can. It doesn't remember it when you reload it. So by making something content editable like that, you can turn pretty much anything into a text field. Because watch, if I change it like this, and now I want to go grab that item again. So where's my let? So then I grab this one, right? Now I can do el.content. I can do, is it data? What is it? I forgot what it is. Value, I think. No, it's HTML, outer HTML, inner HTML, inner text. There, see it? I can actually change it. Watch. Inner text equals college. Boom. Inner text equals. Cool, huh? I can make it so if I want to click on it here, right? I can turn that off though. If I want to do this, I can do content editable equals false. And now can't change it. Pretty cool, huh? So I like showing you the interaction between the Markdown, the CSS, and the JavaScript, because that's why they're all together. That's the main reason they're together. And you can do all kinds of fun things. I don't know when we'll do it, but sometime in this, we'll do a Magic 8 Ball project, which is a really fun little project that you can do almost entirely in your browser. You don't even need to really have an editor even. You can almost write it all just right here and save it. So yeah, we'll try that. Back to the chat real quick, see if there's any new information. And then I'm about ready to wrap up here. That was pretty cool, huh? Makes good input fields obsolete. It does, right? It does. I mean, that does. I mean, it truthfully does. Because input fields are not really semantic. So making something content editable is kind of okay. When you're doing that, you're already creating some sort of application element as opposed to a document element, right? So at that point, having it be searchable, because it's, using the form tags are really becoming, using input form tags are really becoming old school. And frankly, that's okay, because other than, I mean, even the input forms and links are not really usable. I mean, let's be real. So if you're going to do any kind of decent data input into a thing, you should probably have a graphic browser for that. I agree. I agree with that. So, yeah, and it's a full blown HTML editor. You can do all kinds of things. Using templates for spaces and templates you want web maintainers to be able to edit. Yep. Styles are locked, right? You can append the document to the document. You totally can. Yep. You know about that, right, Harry? You want to try it? Let's try it right now. So yeah, I can do document dot. Well, you can do it. I think is it dot append or dot write? Document dot append something. Oopsie. I think it has to be an HTML entity. This is probably going to fail. I think I have this wrong, but we'll try it. Yeah, I thought so. It has to be an HTML entity. You have to make a new child, and you can add it to the end of it, and that's very JavaScript stuff. We're not going to talk about that right now, but yes, you can do it like that. And that's how a lot of people will blog, and that's how you do lazy loaded images, and that's how Twitter just keeps going infinitely, that kind of thing. It just keeps building the page as you scroll down. It's pretty cool stuff. Am I on YouTube? Yes, I am. RWX Rob, I'm on YouTube. Say YouTube. So colleged is a daemon, not a demon. A daemon, not a daemon. Did I put a D in there or something? I don't even know. College. Some sort of inside joke I don't get. I learned about event listeners. Oh yeah, event listeners are really cool. Bubbling the manipulation of DOM way too late. I don't know about that. We'll have to see a specific case on that both. I lag. I'll be right back. I'm coming back. Okay, I'm going to be gone though. Onliner. Kakashke, would you use Bootstrap at some point? Not anymore. I know a lot of people who use Bootstrap for layout. CSS Grid has taken over from Bootstrap for layout, but I know a lot of people who use Bootstrap for all the look and feel of the buttons and stuff like that. The other competitor at the time was a thing called Foundation. I actually made a video way back when, like 2013, when I was teaching at the college, about the differences of those layout things. And now with CSS Grid, which is a direct response to all of that, it's really not necessary for greenfield projects. And shows you can use CSS Grid very, very cleanly since November now. So there's really no reason. You're going to see more and more people abandoning Bootstrap. People who keep Bootstrap usually keep it for the buttons and all the other stuff that it comes with. But that can easily be dealt with through other means, and particularly now that we have Tailwind CSS. So those are advanced topics. If you don't understand what I said, don't worry that she asked a specific question about Bootstrap. I just have to follow up what you're teaching. Well, I don't think you're too dumb. I think you can go one step at a time and go slow. You can slow the videos down and skip the parts you don't understand, and ask me directly about the stuff that troubles you the most. Bootstrap is a lifesaver for what? But I need to know what you use it for. The channel is youtube.com/rwxrob, same as my Twitch. Yep. As a UX design principle, infinite scroll is not always too great. To be honest, it works for some things, but very rarely. You want the user to have scroll, load, roll, scroll, load, scroll, load to find the content they're looking for. Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't particularly like infinite loading. It's just that's how they do it. You like Bootstrap for navigation of the page? Is because of pagination or something? Yeah, I don't. Avoiding CSS. I'm a backend dev. Yeah, for the nav bar at the top. Yeah, that's Harriet. I mean, that's nice and all, but that's not modern development. Modern web development does not use Bootstrap for that. There's still people who do, but that's legacy at this point. That's fully supported through CSS Grid and CSS Flexbox, and we're going to actually see that in the book. Now you're here. Hey, Daniel. So there's a little bit of lag on YouTube, just in case you're wondering. It is 4 o'clock though, so I'm about ready to wrap it up for tonight. It's been a good 4-hour stint for me. Identify and classify all attributes. The ID and class attributes are not limited to just span and div. They go for everything, and that kind of goes without saying. I see that she probably felt like she was pulled into using explaining ID and class because of the conversation with div and span. Div and span are absolutely useless without ID and class, so that's probably what's going on there. And here you go, part 3, structured data in a nutshell. Improving accessibility with ARIA. We're going to leave it right there. This is really important. We did talk about accessibility quite a bit in the first part of the book. And this is now how you specifically can use the ARIA tags that have been, the L attributes, sorry, that have been added to make stuff readable by those who are visually impaired. So we're going to go through this pretty well. And you may not need to do this if you're just making a website for yourself, or, or your, local organization, and that you're not going to be, sued like Pizza Hut was. But it's worth knowing because you don't want to, keep people out. That goes for me too. I need to add, usually you're okay if you just add alt tags to things. And you just make sure to spell things out in text pretty well. But I really need to do an accessibility audit of my own new template as well. I might do some of that on the stream because I drew the template together really quick, and I need to go back and look at some of those things. So that would be a good time for me to look at that as well. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll pull up the chat one more time just to say goodbye. Oh, we're not going to print that. What am I doing? I think I would know how to use my computer. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong things. I'm trying to do my wrong. Oh, I'm tired if you can't tell. If you can't tell, I'm sure you can. Read, write, execute, Rob. How's it going, Regina? Some of you, it looks like you just got here just in time to see me leave. Please stay around. Do all that like and sub stuff if you want to help me out. And this video will go up into the the work through learning web design playlist on my YouTube. I'm using that primarily, and I'm also, as I get time, I'm going into it and I'm setting up the chapter location. So if you want to jump through the video to, I want to see Mr. Rob rant about you don't know JavaScript, right? I'll put a bookmark there, and so you can go click on it, or whatever. But that's ultimately the plan, is for me to. I haven't got to all of them yet, but the plan is for me to break that all up. If it is your first time here, you can back up and go watch the autodidactic series, which comes before this series. If you want to kind of keep track of how the order of everything is popping up in my head, you can go to rwx, rwx.gg/boost. It hasn't been updated for a while, but go there and look at that. There's no links there right now, but that can kind of give you a sense of what's coming up. And beyond that, I appreciate $2 a month patrons. If you want to do that, that helps me a lot, actually. And since I gave up, I had affiliate and was close to partner actually in Twitch, and I gave that up so that I could restream to YouTube and provide all that goodness as well. I probably do need a rant index with all of the collections. The truth is, I'm actually thinking about making a rant playlist. It's just Rob's most, impassioned rants or whatever. Because I don't want to dwell on that, but it is important that you guys get the truth out there. And God knows that the rant about Rust was a success, whether I like it or not. It's up to 42,000 hits at this point. So I think it's okay to have opinions as long as you justify them, including, doing it passionately. But it doesn't mean that I'm attacking any particular person. Would I have a beer with those people? Hell no. But it doesn't mean that they're not good people in their own way. So I'm going to talk to you guys later. I'm going to go relax and frankly hit the sack, and I'll come back at it next week. So next week, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So this week, what's your homework? Well, your homework is to keep making that site. Play around with all of these different tags that we've covered up to this point. Make sure you feel comfortable going back and forth. Rant playlists have the most views usually. Yeah, it's probably true. I probably do need to make a rant playlist just because I can put the Rust playlist, the Rust one in there, and a bunch of others. And so yeah. So that's what should you do this week? Well, have a great week, have a good new year, and if you want to study something, read up all of those pages that we've covered, and catch up on the videos if you need to, and play around, like write your own stuff. Don't think you have to just listen to me. You can do your own thing. It's to experiment. I completely agree, Harry. Building new stuff is by far the best way to experiment. And there's a lot of people who would have you not do that. Free Code Camp comes to mind. They tell you to experiment, but they say do our whole certificate thing first. They should have started with the experimentation first, if you ask me. So do your own thing. I'll talk to you next week. I will be streaming all this week for lots of hours, but it's going to be advanced stuff that I'm going to be working on whatever I feel like. Lately, I've been writing my own meta language parser in Unicode, so in Golang and in Pagan, if you want to follow that. So I'll put a plug in for that. And that's it. Bye. I'll talk to you later.